You know, Teddy wasn't around in 2017, so this is pretty big in our household here. Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl, but my favorite bet is each team to kick one field goal in the first half. That's it. That's plus 155. That's all you need. Look, even Teddy is on board. Even Teddy knows the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. 1+ field goal each first half, plus 155.
What's up, everybody? Off to get some delicious breakfast, but before I eat, I want to tell you, best bet of the Super Bowl, A.J. Brown. First touchdown, you can find it 10-1 out there in the market. Of course, enjoy the game, have fun. Talk to you guys soon.
So I heard you were looking for some long shot Super Bowl props. If the Chiefs are playing in any game, you know what name's coming out of my mouth. The same one you've been hearing all of 2023. The same guy who's been putting money in your pockets all 2023. Isaiah Pacheco, the human credit card payment. We've been taking those rushing props. We've been taking those receiving props. I'm going to combine them. Go rushing and receiving and bumping it all the way up. Don't you know? Bump it up. Isaiah Pacheco, 125 plus yards. That's going to get you plus 800. And if you're looking for a nice way to go into the offseason, that's a pretty good way. If you ask me, you'll be sitting in the sun with me after the Super Bowl. Isaiah Pacheco, over 125 plus rushing and receiving.
Oh, hey, don't tell anybody you saw me reading this. This is the copy to this weekend's script to the Super Bowl. So I have all the information. I already know what happens in the game. I have the script copy right here. Only sent it out to a very, very select amount of content creators. I happen to be one of them. So I've got a bet for you. Kadarius Toney plus 420 anytime touchdown score. It's in the script. Go bet it.
I got a big dog, and this big dog's got to eat. So I got to make some money here on the Super Bowl with my best bet, Patrick Mahomes to throw 2 or more interceptions. You can find that plus 450 and higher across the entire industry. 25 interceptions, 12 this season for Patrick Mahomes in the regular season. You have 17 interceptions for the Eagles throughout this season. Slay, Bradbury, just a ridiculous secondary. Fire that one up, and good luck.
If you're not betting the long shot to win Super Bowl MVP this year, what are you doing? Don't even bother turning the TV on, okay? Sure, in all likelihood, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts. But there's an absolute dog on the defensive line that's going to wreak havoc on this Kansas City offense all game long. We're talking about someone that finished second in sacks this season, first in forced fumbles, first in fumble recoveries, has 3.5 sacks in the postseason through only 2 games. Trying to block this dude is like standing in between a crackhead and his connect after he spent all day trying to get his money up. It's just not going to happen. So guess what? If Jalen Hurts is mediocre and the Eagles still win this game and they continue to run a committee in the backfield, it's going to be Hassan Reddick at 35-1 taking home the MVP. And Patrick Mahomes is going to be having nightmares about number 7 for years to come. Oh, okay. So mine has like this. Like it has probably 5 different incline settings.
Mine has 3, and then it has, if I just take it off the hinge, it declines.
Right. Nice. I didn't know you. Is that new? Did you just get that?
No, I got it at my old place. I've never really used it.
Oh. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. Kicking it off a little bit early today. Why? Because we got 11 games following the trade deadline, and you know what to expect. If you don't know what to expect, sit back, buckle in, because a lot of new players on a lot of new teams, a lot of players not on those teams anymore. We're just remembering who's on those teams is going to be enough in its own right, but we're here to break it down, and nobody better to do the job than Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. What's happening, brother?
Not much. It's Friday. Looking forward to the weekend, but crazy slate. Like, you have a ton of value on a couple of
Spurs.
teams. Yeah, the Spurs. Mostly the Spurs. You have a ton of value on a couple of teams, and then just like not a lot else.
There's not a lot else. It's you had mentioned to me before the show, you're like, we could probably do this in an hour. I mean, granted, it's you and me. Like, it's possible that we need more than an hour.
So me and Josh did it in an hour this morning, and when we were wrapping up the show, Josh said that the deeper dive would start at 4:45, and I did make the comment that you were hosting the deeper dive, which meant that we would need the 15 minutes regardless of basketball.
You're damn right. Hey, look, I try and keep things interesting around here. But we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it takes us. Hey, I'm pretty sure you were on till like 11:15, weren't you?
I thought it was like 11.
I don't know. Mike said you were on till like 11:15 because I remember I had an 11:30 show. He hit me up. I was walking the dog, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm still on the show."
Oh, okay. So maybe it was 11. We also spent a lot of time talking about trade deadline because Josh loves that shit, and I had to make everything up on the fly because I don't care.
As long as you know what team they're on now is really all that matters.
Dude, then he hits me. So he asked me some like random trade deadline question. And I'm just like, I don't know. And he's just like, "You're such a good co-host." I'm like, "Do you want me to like make shit up for you?" So like I did that the rest of the show. But like,
oh, he hit you with the in-show insult.
Yeah, just insulted me for not being aware of trade deadline ramifications or thoughts. Like,
the problem is that you see the thing about you, and I think in some ways this is probably an attribute because you're never going to let people you're never going to fake caring about something. You don't even feign interest in stuff. Like,
I 100% consider that an attribute. I do it on purpose. When something comes out of my mouth, it is either going to be clearly a joke or something to be taken seriously. It's not going to be me half-assing talking about what NBA teams should have done at the deadline when I don't know. It's by design. Yeah,
well, I don't think it's by design. I think it's natural. Like, I don't think that's something you've mastered. No. It's just who you are.
It's by design in that I know how I naturally am. I don't want to do extra work to have to like pretend that I'm interested in some things. So I've Fair just enough. Let it be. It's the brand now, and it's great.
What I'll do is like I'll pretend I'm interested, but in the least bit, so like it still makes decent content, and then immediately find a way to get off the subject. Like,
so I ended up having to do that because Josh wouldn't just drop it.
He loves this.
But I initially just tried to make it clear, like, "Hey, we're not doing this today. Let's move on." And then he insulted me. So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll do the fake shit."
Well, and to be fair, we're going to start talking basketball right now. By the way, very happy to have all you guys with us. Not happy to see that we only have 80 likes and one of them is mine. We got over 520 people watching right now. There's got to be a few out there that can bump this up to a more appropriate number on a Friday night as we're talking 11 games following the trade. I have faith in you guys. Anyway, subscribe, hit that thumbs up. Also, I have a surprise for some of you guys who have been around here for a while. We got a sponsor back for the Super Bowl just for the next couple of days. I think that you'll be very excited by the read. I'm sure some of you already know what I'm talking about, but when we get there, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it, Adam.
I don't know what it is. I'm just hoping it's what my first guess would be.
You know exactly what it is.
I'm not going to be able to not laugh.
Yeah,
is it that one?
Oh, no. Wait.
You already know the one that it took me like 2 months to be able not to laugh.
JM?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
It's a different one. But also, dude, you have more energy in the afternoon anyway. So I feel like in the morning shows, you're always going to do a less analytical break. But plus, there's more information at night too.
Yeah, well, it's not less analytical in the morning; it's just more boring.
That's why I changed. That's why I changed what I said.
Yeah,
There's more information. Yeah. All right, let's get into it.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Yeah. And KG, yeah, dude. When I had to do a short on my favorite bet, and I said, I was talking about like an MVP prop, and it was Hassan Reddick, but I didn't say in a short, like you don't say the name till the end, so you could keep it in, you know. And I was like, trying to block this guy is like trying to get in between a crackhead and his connect after he spent all day trying to get his money up. And after I submitted that, I was like, I probably just should have said it was like trying to get in between, you know, an animal who has it and a meal after not eating for a while.
Yeah, you have to talk about what you're familiar with. It makes it.
I thought it was a good analogy though, right? Listen.
Well, everything's come together for me now because Mike messaged something about him and I was like, I don't know who that is. And then somebody in chat said something about the crackhead and his connect thing. And I'm like, I don't get that either. So now at least I understand together. What people are talking about.
Put it all together.
Yeah.
I thought it was solid because it's the truth. It's the truth. You try to stand in between someone that spent all day, you know, shoplifting from Walmart. They finally get what they need. And you're like, sorry. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. You're dead. That's Hassan Reddick on Sunday. All right, let's go. Talk some, and I'm glad you guys like that. I wasn't sure if it was going to be well received or people are like, what is this guy talking about? But all right.
I'm glad we started 15 minutes early so I could just indirectly call you a crackhead on air.
I was never a crackhead. All right, let's go. New York Knicks. Yeah, for real, Thaddeus. That's the problem. People are so worried about what they say. I was like, I'm leaving that in there. I'm keeping it. I'm leaving it in there. And yes, exactly, Brian. It's like the most true reference ever. So I'm glad you guys have validated where I was at on that. It makes me feel a lot better. New York Knicks, Philadelphia Phillies, 6.5 point Phillies, Philadelphia Eagles, 6 and holy shit. Philadelphia 76ers. There we go.
You found the connect today?
Yeah. No one was getting in my way. Philadelphia 76ers. I was just having a long conversation with someone about the Eagles and the Phillies and how everyone's so optimistic in Philly. And we're like, no, the Phillies are better than the Astros. Like, you haven't watched baseball since the 2008 World Series, dummy. You have no. All right. Philadelphia 76ers. This is, I assume, one of those games, particularly on the Knicks side, where when you say there just isn't a lot to get to, the Knicks probably stand out as one of those teams today.
Yeah, they do. You have guys that are clearly fine if like you want them to be the low-owned guy in a lineup that you're playing, whether that's Randall, Brunson, Barrett, but there's nothing at all that looks very appealing because with this slate, you have pay-up options like Giannis, there's other people, but Giannis is the one that really stands out at the very top. You have a strong mid-range, and then you just have a couple of teams that are just extremely shorthanded. So that's where you're getting your value from. So it kind of makes the mid-range not as useful. It makes looking at somebody like Jalen Brunson at 8,600, who on normal slates, if he's low owned, it's just like, all right, well, that's a fair price tag, but he's going to play big minutes and he can, do great. It's just like a completely useless play at this point. So, there's nothing from the Knicks that I'm interested in at all.
Yeah, it's really ugly. And on the other side, I mean, listen, with Joel Embiid here, I know it's every week we're saying this, or every day we're saying the same damn thing, right? Like, we're saying the same thing. All right, he's questionable. He's probably going to play. I think this is the front end of a back-to-back, though. It might not. Yeah, it is. It's the front end of a back-to-back. They got the Knicks and the Nets tomorrow. Maybe he sits out. Maybe he sits out tomorrow against the Nets. At this point, I don't think we can really make an educated guess on whether or not he's going to be there. He's a game time decision every damn night with this foot.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I treat him basically like LeBron, where when he's questionable, I assume he's playing until I'm told otherwise. And if he's playing, this team isn't very appealing either. Like Embiid and Harden, obviously, in large field tournaments, if you get there, you get there. They're never bad plays, but they're not going to stand out as priorities. DeAnthony Melton is cheap at 4,400. He has been playing more minutes recently. You no longer have Matisse Thybulle's 10 minutes in the rotation. Maybe those go to Daniel House. Maybe they just get spread amongst like Melton and Niang. So like Melton's an okay value, but you just have better value on this slate. Tobias Harris is at one of the cheapest price points we've seen probably ever, but we know that he is the third or fourth option when Harden, Embiid, and Maxey play. So there's nothing that stands out if Embiid is in. If Embiid is out, Harden looks better, Harris looks better, Melton looks better. But assuming Embiid's in, this game just kind of sucks.
It does. The truth is, though, okay. Let me phrase it this way, right? Because we've already talked about it, kind of tease it at the top of the show. There are certain teams right now that just have insane value, right? Like 4 guys with 40+% ownership on certain teams, namely the Spurs. But if we were to have if we were to have Joel Embiid sit today on a lot of other slates, you'd be like, man, this opens everything up. Is it going to have, it's going to have an effect. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's clearly going to open up value, but is it going to be to the same extent that we would see on slates that aren't post trade deadline day? You know what I mean?
Yeah, not to the same extent. Like, what's going to happen is right now, if you look at the boom bust tool, and this is like a good way to illustrate it, Embiid has a 7% chance of being optimal on DraftKings. Harden's at 8, Melton's at 6, Harris is at about 4. If Embiid is out, Harden maybe goes from like 8 to 13 to 15. Melton goes from like 6 to 10. Harris goes from like 4 to 10. You're like, these guys are going to look better, but they're still just not going to look like the biggest priorities because you just have teams that are running 8 or 9 guys out there. San Antonio, Miami in the same boat. Like, you just have teams that are very shorthanded.
Let's keep it going then. Phoenix, Indiana. So Phoenix Suns, they get Devin Booker back today after sitting him out. He only played 25 minutes in that game. I'm not surprised to see that happen with how careful that, treating this guy with kid gloves right now. It's, you got him and now I guess just looking at this, they got rid of Jay Crowder. Doesn't matter. Dario Saric, we talked about like, oh yeah, on the strategy show yesterday. Yeah, he's 79% owned and then he gone prior to that. So at this point, it's like how much of Ayton and Paul and like Josh Okogie do we want?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of surprising that they're not more appealing right now than they are. I was surprised when I did the strategy show this morning with Josh talking about it. Like, I assumed it was going to be a really appealing team, but it really isn't because you have Devin Booker back. So that's cutting into DeAndre Ayton's projection. That's cutting into Chris Paul's projection. But also when like you look at yesterday's game, Josh Okogie came through with a massive game, which, was obviously good if you played him. But the interesting thing is
after not playing the last time, he was
right.
Good value. Yeah.
So Josh Okogie played 32 minutes. Ish Wainwright played 32 minutes. Craig played 35 minutes. At first glance, it's easy to be like, oh, well, even Devin Booker coming back means those guys all have to get substantial minutes, but they don't because you only got 25 minutes from Damian Lee. That's somebody that you expected to play more. It's really easy to see, with Booker coming back, let's say he plays 30 minutes and that's just 30 minutes added to this rotation. Let's say Damian Lee on average plays 4 to 6 minutes more than he did yesterday. You're very quickly just cutting all of these guys back to where they're playing like 20 to 22 minutes. And on this slate, that doesn't make them look very appealing. So if you want to get to some DeAndre Ayton or Chris Paul and hope for the best, sure. But their price tags are pretty reasonable for Devin Booker being in. Outside of that, I don't really know how you get the most of anything.
James Wiseman not making his debut. How about him expected to start?
Well, they said he's going to be the starter. I never saw expected to play today and start.
No, me neither. But he was questionable. I'm saying when he plays, he's expected to be the starter.
Incredibly stupid. I don't know what they're doing.
What's that? Oh yeah,
I don't know what they're doing.
Me neither. Would have been interesting though to see because he's there. There's a couple price points today that are wild, and DraftKings would have had the opportunity to change them. You'd think, and they still didn't. But we're not there yet. We'll get to San Antonio and Detroit next, but. Let's wrap this one up with the Pacers. And for those of you guys, we're not just like breezing through these because we're trying to make good time. We got plenty of time. It's just Like, look at the Pacers today, Adam. There's certain teams, given how much value this happens late in the season and the day after the trade deadline, where there's so much value on a select few teams, a handful of teams, that other teams are just going to look largely underwhelming as a result.
Yeah, exactly. It's, we talk about it on slates all the time, where especially on larger slates, if you have a couple of teams that are dealing with injuries, those are the teams that are just going to be the priorities.
Yep.
Here you have teams that traded away half their guys and what they got back isn't available yet.
So then what about the Pacers?
They look completely uninteresting. Like, obviously Halliburton, Turner, Hield, they are fine. If they're in a random tournament lineup that you look at, you shouldn't get rid of them. Just like Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton on the other side, but there's just nothing here that stands out. I got a lot of bets down using the Bet Pro tool on Nesmith and Nembhard in particular, but as far as DFS goes, there's nothing that stands out.
What were the bets for Nesmith and Nembhard?
Over on pretty much everything, which made me really uncomfortable, and hopefully our projections are just right. It kind of just felt like we have a weird Indiana bias, but I think I have over 3.5 rebounds on Nesmith, over 2.5 rebounds on Nembhard, over 3.5 assists on Nembhard, over 2.5 threes for Halliburton, over 1.5 threes for Nesmith, over half of a three for Nembhard, over 10.5 points for Nesmith.
Dude, you're really loaded up on Pacer props today.
Yeah, it makes me feel fantastic just loading up on like the worst players on the Pacers against Miami.
How many of those were in your video?
I think Nesmith.
Check out the video too over on the Odd Shopper channel. Adam's been putting that out Monday through Friday. Great video, awesome tool. I think the first week is still free for NBA Bet Pro as well. I'm almost certain it is.
7-day free trial.
7 day, yeah. First week is still free. 7-day free trial on Bet Pro. It's crushing. It's super easy to use. Mike can throw a screenshot up just so you see how easy this is to use. Like, you have to do zero work. So if you're in the betting, Bet Pro is undoubtedly what you're looking for right now to make your life way easier betting NBA props. You don't have to spray across 100 props like Adam's doing either. You can just take the highest expected ROI props and bet all of that. It gives you how much is expected to bet, expected win, all of that good stuff, expected ROI. Very cool stuff. First week entirely free, and hopefully you'll make enough money to where you won't have to worry about, so where your winnings will just cover for you going forward. Links in the description. I think we have one in chat as well. All right, let's go. San Antonio Spurs. Damn, dude. Stanley Johnson and Jakob Poeltl's gone. He's back home in Toronto. Isaiah Roby, Blake Wesley. They have, I think, only 10 active players tonight. Man, on an 11-game slate when Stanley Johnson's getting 53%, this team is going to be shorthanded.
Yeah, Josh and I talked about it this morning, and we had mentioned Charles Bassey as like the backup center being an interesting tournament play, but he's not even in. So this team is extremely shorthanded. They are extremely inexpensive as well. It's one thing when you get shorthanded teams, like for example, Miami yesterday or last game and today, they were shorthanded, but the guys that you really wanted to get to were relatively expensive. So it kind of limits how much you can get to. Here on San Antonio, the most expensive guy is Malachi Branham at $4,900. You have a $3,200 Stanley Johnson. You have a $3K Blake Wesley. You have a $3K Isaiah Roby. You have a $3K Devontae Graham. Ketabes Diop is $4,300. Zach Collins is one of the best plays on the slate at $4K. There are so many minutes to go around. There's so much production to go around because you don't have Trey Jones or Keldon Johnson or, obviously Jakob Poeltl or Devin Vassell. This is just straight up April NBA in February for the Spurs, and it makes all of them look good. But in particular, again, Zach Collins, one of the best options on the slate at 4K. Stanley Johnson at 3,200, not a bad point per minute guy, and should get all of the minutes he can handle here. 3K on Wesley, 3K on Roby, 3K on Graham. These are all just completely broken price points.
Dude, Zach Collins just looks fantastic. This is a guy that on, certain slates you might be getting to even when Jakob Poeltl was starting at times. And now you're getting him at 4K, 1.08 fantasy points per minute. How many minutes are you projecting Collins for today?
I think 28 is like a very fair projection, but it wouldn't be surprising if you got more. I'm not sure what we have at right now. I'm trying to look, but 28 seems reasonable.
Yeah, I suppose it does. Who gets all the backup 5 minutes today? Roby?
Roby is my expectation.
Who else?
We have Collins at 25 minutes and still looking very, very good. We have him projected for 30.9 DraftKings points in 25 minutes. I would not be surprised at all if he plays 28 to 30.
No, well, who else is going to get the backup 5 minutes other than Roby?
I mean, that's probably it. But it's also the Spurs. Like, it doesn't matter.
Right. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's not going to be a 28-20 split or something. I mean, Roby's at 24%. I guess what I'm asking is, like, if you expect Roby to get all of the backup center minutes, how many minutes do you have him playing then?
I think 28-20 or 26-22 is a good expectation of the split.
Okay. What does the starting lineup look like for you? And for anybody wondering, the San Antonio Spurs today, not including everyone who's gone, no Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan, Romeo Langford, Josh Richardson's gone. Like, this team does not have a lot of pieces. So what's the starting lineup look like for you today?
Branham, Bates, Diop, Collins, probably Johnson, and I have absolutely no idea. Blake Wesley, I guess. I really don't know who the fifth guy would be.
Like, you can't. I suppose you could start Roby alongside.
You could if they start. So this was a question that was going to naturally come up on this particular slate. If Roby is coming off the bench, I don't want to play him and Zach Collins together. Not that they can't both beat their salaries, but you just have other very cheap center options as well. Like, if I'm playing Zach Collins in a lineup, I would just rather have Mark Williams or Nick Richards than Isaiah Roby. But if Isaiah Roby
upside to actually get those minutes,
right?
Yeah.
But if Isaiah Roby starts next to Zach Collins, I'm fine playing them together because they are very, very, very clearly getting minutes next to each other, given that they're starting next to each other. So if Roby starts, I am not setting a rule between him and Collins. If Roby comes off the bench, I would set that rule.
Roby could start and still get some of the backup 5.
Right, exactly. Like, if Roby starts, I assume they're just staggering him and Collins.
Right. Which in that case makes both of them look better.
Right. They both just become great values. Whereas if Roby's coming off the bench and you assume he's the backup center, Roby is a good value. Collins is a great value. I just wouldn't want to play them in the same lineup because it's still an 11-game slate. There's a lot of value elsewhere, and you are kind of limiting your ceiling by having them together.
Exactly. Anything else you want to hit on for the Spurs?
No.
All right. On the other side, mentioned Wiseman not playing today. He was questionable up until just a few minutes ago. Killian Hayes, though, very popular play today. And then you do have pieces in it. Obviously, a great matchup against the skeleton crew Spurs squad that already had the worst defensive rating in basketball. Like Ivy, Jalen Duren, Stewart, Hamidou Diallo, all of those guys. None of them are popping, but they're all decent enough to have a bit of a conversation about them today in this spot. Like, this whole game has some serious interest.
Yeah. The Detroit side this morning was actually one of the most appealing sides that we got to. And then now it's still good, but just not as good as San Antonio. So, Detroit pretty much across the board. We had Killian Hayes back in the starting lineup last game. He's 4,700, pulling 43% ownership. He's just mispriced here in a very good spot. We don't have James Wiseman with Detroit yet. No idea why he's starting or what they're doing, but that's for another day. For now, we have Jalen Duren at 5K going up against San Antonio. He looks good. Ivy, Stewart, Bogdanovich all look good. I don't really know how much you actually need to get to Hamidou Diallo, but the minutes should be there for him. You have no Sadiq Bey anymore, so you have a shorthanded team where he should play a lot. You have 6 guys on this team, or you have 5 guys between 10 and 20% ownership, and then you have Killian Hayes at 43%. So it's just like 5 good plays and 1 great play in Hayes. I expect to just be getting to tons and tons of this game.
You're going to set any limits on how many players from the Spurs you want in your lineups?
I'll probably set it at I'll probably hard cap it at 4, but I assume I'll get 3 in most.
Yeah, you would think so. Let's keep it moving then. We got a bunch more to get to here. And we get to the Charlotte Hornets going up against the Boston Celtics, who will be without Jaylen Brown and still Marcus Smart today. We'll see about Al Horford. But with Mason Plumlee out, I guess it's time to talk about Mark Williams here. He's almost minimum salary. It is not exactly a great matchup for him, but as you and I say all the time, at least if you're at the center position, you have ways to kind of fall into stats. He's averaging well over a fantasy point per minute in the limited run that he's gotten this season. 16%. I mean, I totally understand it.
Yeah, I think it should be higher.
You would think so.
I think he's arguably the best play on the slate if he starts.
I saw 16, thought, all right, it is a tough matchup, but this guy, when he's on the floor, has been very productive. I mean, very productive. And now you're taking out the starting center from this team. And if, like you said, if Mark Williams starts, which could very easily happen, how many minutes could we be? I mean, I think it's possible that you could see 30 minutes, don't you?
Right. Like if he starts, I would expect it to be like 26 for him, 22 for Richards, but it could certainly be 30-18 or something like that. And overall this year, 1.21 DraftKings points per minute for Williams, 1.03 for Richards. Like whoever is starting is going to be a very good value. Whoever is coming off the bench is going to be a low-owned contrarian play that you can get to that still has a high ceiling. But if you get Mark Williams in the starting lineup, it's likely you're getting 48 minutes split between him and Richards, and it's going to make him look really good. I'm actually pretty surprised he's only pulling 19% ownership. He gives you similar production to Zach Collins, similar playing time projection, assuming he's starting, and he's 20% less expensive.
Right. Yeah, what happens though if it is a 24-24 split and Nick Richards ends up getting like no ownership at all?
So even if it's 24-24, Mark Williams looks very good at 3,200. The backup center here is just going to be an interesting pivot because you're going to get way more ownership coming into the starter, as you should. But Richards isn't a bad point per minute guy, and we don't know how this rotation is going to play out. So in large field tournaments, you can make that pivot if you need to. Like if you need a cheap center, but you already have a lot of really popular guys in your lineup, then by all means swap Williams to Richards or Richards to Williams, whatever, depending on who's starting and who's lower owned. But whoever's starting here is going to look really, really good.
Is there anything outside of center though?
Not really at all. LaMelo obviously has a high ceiling, but I'm interested in whoever is starting at center. I'm interested in the backup center, and I really don't care about the rest of this team.
What about the way Boston looks tonight without Jaylen Brown, without Marcus Smart's been out? Al Horford's questionable here. It looked like that was just a maintenance day, but now it appears that it might be more than that. Of course, Jason Tatum getting a lot of ownership, and not just because of the matchup, but because there's so much dirt cheap value that you're seeing a lot of the high priced guys getting a lot of ownership because it's a big slate and you can go stars and scrubs as easily as you've ever been able to.
Yeah, it's basically Jason Tatum looks really good in a good matchup. No Jaylen Brown. Tatum went through shoot around. He's expected to play. He looks really, really good. The rest of this team on most slates would be appealing. Derek White's been playing more minutes. He's 6,100. Robert Williams gives you a very high ceiling at 6,100. Malcolm Brogdon, if he happens to get around 30 minutes, is a very good point per minute guy. And those minutes are available with Jaylen Brown out. The problem is just like you were saying, if you have guys around 6K that project for like 32 or 34 DraftKings points, and you have guys around 3K that project for like 26, then it becomes difficult to really want to get to those 6K guys when you can just cut the salary in half, get more Giannis in your lineups, get more Kyrie, get more Lillard, get more, whoever you want to at the top end.
So is there anybody else in Boston right now that you want to get to with, relative volume?
No. Like I think White, Williams, Brogdon, Horford, if he's in, they're all fine as like the contrarian piece in a tournament lineup. But Tatum's the only guy I'd be prioritizing.
Let's keep it going then. We got 4 down. We got 7 to go. Talk about Utah here. This is one spot that I really want to dig into a little bit. You got the Jazz, 8-point dogs, 229.5 point total against the Toronto Raptors. Mike Conley is gone. And now you're looking at a team where, yes, not the greatest spot. They're not a good team. But I mean, Colin Sexton played 31 minutes after Conley's departure, had 20 points in the first half, slowed down a lot in the second. Of course, that game blew out early, but he's sitting at $4,000 today and likely gets a decent amount of burn again.
Yeah, he looks like one of the best values on the slate to me. In the last game, he played 31 minutes. That's a game that also blew out. The Jazz.
Yeah, how much did he lose to the blowout? I didn't look.
Yeah, he lost about 3 minutes and 43 seconds. So you were looking at like 34 to 35 minutes from Sexton there. He's 4K. He's clearly not a bad point per minute guy. We saw him be one of the best values and his price tag very quickly increase when Mike Conley was out earlier in the year. There's no reason not to like Colin Sexton here at 4K. 24% ownership honestly seems low to me. But either way, I really like him. We have Taylor Horton-Tucker getting 17%. I have a harder time with this one. So Jordan Clarkson is questionable. If Clarkson's out, then there's even more minutes available and this could change. But assuming Clarkson is in, I think Horton-Tucker would be a good play in tournaments if he were low owned because he's 3,400. He's a good point per minute guy and Utah is shorthanded. But we have seen time and time again this year that like the DFS industry decides Taylor Horton-Tucker has to play a bunch of minutes and the Jazz decide that they like Fontecchio more than him. They like Agbaji more than him. They like everybody on the team more than him. And then everybody just gets mad on Twitter. Like, how are they not playing Horton-Tucker more? Like they didn't learn the first 18 times. So even if you look at the last game where they were really shorthanded against Minnesota, Taylor Horton-Tucker played 24.4 minutes. 4 minutes and 37 seconds of that was garbage time. He basically played 20 minutes in a game where they had very limited bodies. If he were like 3, 4, 5% owned at 3,400, and I thought he was going to get around 20 minutes with the upside to get 24, 25, that would be a great tournament play. If he's going to be 17% owned on a slate with a ton of value, I would rather just let other people play what I expect to be about 20 minutes on average of Taylor Horton-Tucker, and I can find other things to do.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah. Like Sexton is it 24% now? I hadn't updated it for a few minutes. Is it 24%?
Yeah, it's 24 as of last I refreshed.
Yeah. Seems pretty low. Seems pretty low for that. I mean, he's close to minimum salary. He's going to have considerable usage. And in a close game, if it's close, he plays around 34, 35 minutes.
So like we have right now, we have Colin Sexton and Taylor Horton-Tucker projected for a combined 41% ownership. I think Sexton himself should probably be like 30 to 40%, and Horton-Tucker should be like 10 or below.
It feels that way. It really does. So yeah, Colin Sexton, great play today. What about on the opposite side of this game with the Toronto Raptors? Unless you had anything else for Utah, I don't think there's a ton else, right?
Yeah, I mean for Utah, after talking about Sexton and saying why I'm hesitant on Horton-Tucker, the rest of it is just, tournament plays. There's a ceiling for Clarkson, Kessler, Markkanen, Olynyk. They're all reasonably priced. On a lot of slates, they'd be more popular, but here it's just like their secondary plays. They're good ways to be contrarian. That's the nice thing about 11-game slates is you can actually play good players and just have them be low owned. That applies to all of these guys. But as far as priorities go, Sexton's the only one for me. Horton-Tucker is projected to be one for the field. I don't see it. But the rest is just secondary stuff.
On the other side, here's just another team. I'm wondering, you're always someone that when it comes to low owned Raptors is willing to kind of dabble a little bit. The difference now is that the kind of the makeup of this team is a little bit different now than it was when we would have talked about this maybe a month ago. Like Fred VanVleet has taken a more significant role. His price has come up significantly too. But like before, and this isn't to say that Pascal Siakam still isn't capable of putting up really big numbers, and his price tag has dropped a little bit as well. They have a good matchup against this Utah team. Siakam coming off what was like 34-10-7 game or 37-10-7. Like he still has that potential, but there's been a lot of really underwhelming games mixed in with Siakam along the way. And on an 11-game slate, are you willing to play for that kind of outlier massive game now and say, hey, Nick Nurse gives these guys huge minutes, or is Toronto a write-off for you?
They're a good tournament team in that it's still a very appealing matchup for them. You know that you're going to get a lot of minutes from their main guys, but they're all also correctly priced. So you can't prioritize any of them because on average they are correctly priced, if not overpriced. But in any given game, you get the Van Vliet game, you get the Siakam game, whatever it may be. And so they're good tournament plays. They're good ways to be contrarian. But there's nothing that stands out.
Okay. Houston and Miami. Oh, no house advantage. Yo, no house advantage right now. Guess what? They added a free play, a free square to the pick'em or to the against the house. You know, I always talk about the pick'em where you're going in, you're playing against the field, and there's massive overlay. Well, that's no different any day of the week because today it's 195 out of 1,200 right now, 16% filled with an hour and 37 minutes to go prior to lock. All of our tools are free for no house advantage across the board, whether it's the optimal lineup tool, whether it's the no house advantage player prop projections, where we literally give you the percentage odds that it's going to be the over or the under. And when you're talking about pick'em, it's the softest odds, the softest lines out there. I mean, legitimately not to mention the overlay. You're just building lineups, top to bottom. The ones you like the most go at the top. They get the most points. The ones you're least confident in go at the bottom. They get the fewest points. Very simple stuff. And we saw Alex the other day take down like 12,000, and he thanked the overlay as a result over at No House Advantage for a conference championship. Took down 12K, chopped first, took fourth or something like that as well. Hands down, the best value you're finding right now in signing up somewhere is right there because all of our tools are free. First match deposit bonus up to $100 when you sign up. You got to use the link in the description or in chat though. Otherwise, we can't find you and give you that type of stuff. They can't be tracked. But also now where you play against the house, and if you hit all of your picks, you're 21xing your entry. They got a free square. Patrick Mahomes under or over under, select properly. 1,000.5 passing yards. Unlikely that he goes over that. Under 1,000.5 passing yards when you're playing against the house. It's similar to prize picks, except quite frankly, the odds are soft. The lines are softer at no house advantage, hands down. So check it out. Use the free tools. We have them for pick'em and we have them for versus the house. We have all of our projections and everything for both of them. And you're getting the first match $100 deposit bonus when you sign up using the link in the description. And like I said, free square on Mahomes. Throw that in out of the gate under 1,000.5 passing yards and get your first match deposit bonus. Use the free tools. Start making some money. The easiest way you can do it in DFS right now, there's no doubt with that overlay too. It's at no house advantage. All right, let's keep it moving here. Where are we at? We just hit Utah, Toronto. Let's go Houston and Miami. All right, so Houston. Oh God, some of these teams, man. Jalen.
I told you before the show, like 18 of them.
I know you're right. It is really crazy. And they're going up against Miami too.
Mark
like
Williams
Jalen
is
Green's.
starting.
What's that?
Mark Williams is starting.
Okay, I mean that makes him just a great play.
I don't really know how you don't play Mark Williams.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Nick Richards and hoping that you get foul trouble on Mark Williams.
The tournament like leverage on a guy like Richards does make sense because we have no idea what the playing time is going to look like.
Right.
But they're the same prize.
So that's the problem. And the way like Josh and I talked about it this morning, Mark Williams is a better point per minute guy than Richards. Williams is starting. So at worst, you expect this to be 24-24. It's not like you're going to be like, 20 for Williams, 28 for Richards, since Williams is starting. So it just ends up being, I don't know how you don't play a $3,200 Williams unless you're just saying, I'm going to take 3K Richards. With Williams starting, honestly, I don't really know. I hate saying to lock something. I don't know how you don't play one of the Charlotte centers.
Okay. That makes perfect sense where you're going with that. No question. And even if you're talking about like foul trouble or this and that, both these guys are averaging around 5 fouls per 36 anyway. So
I guess the possible counter argument is that you have a 4K Zach Collins. You do still have other good centers on the slate as well. So like there's some scenario where Mark Williams goes for, let's say, 30 fantasy points, but Zach Collins goes for 36 and some other center goes for 55 and Mark Williams hurts you. But man, it's hard for me not to have a Charlotte center in every lineup.
Just looking at our ownership projections right now, looking at the boom bust tool. Yeah, Collins. Look, to me, if Roby doesn't start, there's no way he should be higher owned than Mark Williams where we have it right now.
Wait, we
if
have
Roby
Roby
doesn't
projected
start,
to be higher owned than Mark Williams?
What?
Yeah, that's insane. I hadn't
Right?
even
like there's Mark Williams, and granted, now that we have the starting line, we haven't updated the ownership projection. Right. My assumption is that this all changes, but like right now, Roby's above him. That should not be the case at all. Mark Williams, now that he's starting, and we have no idea what the starting lineup for. What if Roby only plays backup center minutes behind?
Yeah,
Collins?
There's that ownership's going to change. Mark Williams
it has to.
Mark Williams is likely to be the highest owned guy on the slate, and he should be.
Looking at it though, you know how you're saying there's other good centers. I don't think there's that many centers where you look at and you go, hey, these guys are just fantastic tonight. Like,
no, but there's just a lot where, like, so let's say Embiid plays. If he goes for 80, you need Embiid. If Sabonis goes for 70, you need him. Bam's in a good spot. Alperen Şengün, we know, still has a massive ceiling. Like, yeah, it's not the slate where you have a bunch of mid-range centers that are underpriced, but you have a bunch of really good point per minute high upside guys where if one of them just goes nuts, you could get in the situation where like 30 at center just doesn't get it done. But most likely you're good. And that's why I think you really should just be like most of my lineups are going to be Mark Williams, Zach Collins, be different elsewhere.
I hear you. And hey, Teddy, earlier, man, thanks for gifting those Stokastic memberships out to everybody. You're the man. If you guys didn't get one, you want to join, joins down there, get the super chat or the free super chats each month, the custom emojis, the sweet badges. See a bunch of those sweet badges in chat right now. But yeah, appreciate you, Teddy. Mike, can you get me that super chat from earlier in the show? There was a $10 super chat. Adam called me a crackhead. And then I
it was
completely
implied.
forgot.
I didn't say it specifically.
What?
It was implied. I didn't call you a crackhead.
I mean, listen, man.
You and everybody listening took it how you wanted to take it. I didn't actually call you one.
Listen. We all know what you meant. Okay.
100%.
Exactly. All right. Don't try and play me as a dummy. Do you want to get to Şengün today? I mean, he's sub 1%. Jalen Green's he's 6,900. He's getting 2%. Like, we know that he can pop off for 40-point games. It's not a good matchup. It's not a fast-paced matchup. But is there anything for Houston, just given the personnel they have? No Eric Gordon anymore either. Kevin Porter's still out of this one. Like, is there anything we can do that would make things unique with a high ceiling?
It's just another tournament team. I would love to get to Şengün at 8,400 and no ownership. But the reason he has no ownership is Zach Collins, Mark Williams, and then all of the other centers. So, like, it makes sense. It's not like I'm looking at this saying, I can't believe Şengün's not pulling ownership. I completely get it. He is a very high upside play. And if you find a creative way where you don't have to pay down for center, he makes sense, but really tough to get there. Jalen Green at 6,900 certainly gives you a very high ceiling, but there's plenty of guards on this slate, both pay ups and value. I'm curious to see who starts in place of Eric Gordon. Jayshawn Tate's 3,800 on DraftKings with point guard, small forward. If he starts, I would certainly be interested. He kind of been stuck in that 20 to 22 minute range. And then last game he played 25. If they throw him into the starting lineup, he's not a bad point per minute guy, and he would be likely to give you, 28 to 30 minutes. So I'd have some interest there, but it's just really tough to like this team because even without Eric Gordon, and Kevin Porter Jr. at this point, like, prices have adjusted somewhat, and where they are still underpriced, like, I think you could certainly argue Jalen Green is underpriced with no KPJ, and same for Şengün. But when you put it relative to, like, you're paying almost 3 times as much money for Alperen Şengün as Mark Williams.
Yeah. By the way, Jakob Poeltl is playing today. Not that it matters much.
I mean, it makes Toronto look even scarier.
Yeah, exactly. Ed Monk, come on, sinners, smash the like button. 500 sounds good. Holy water for your, that's right, man. Atone for your sins. We are 198 away from getting the 500. We have 29 minutes to do so. It should be quick work. Did you get in there yet, Adam? I'm assuming you did your part.
I'm in.
All right, you're in. So you don't have to be enthusiastic, but you do what's right. We know you do what's right. We'll get
and
there.
now that I said that I'm in there, people are going to follow because,
right. Because why follow a crackhead?
Right.
We got 2,000 people.
You have an influencer like me.
Oh yes, an influencer. Yeah, Josh would agree, right? This morning, I'm sure he in conversationalism. I don't even think that's a word. Let's take a super chat too. Saif Din. I don't know, man. My bad for butchering that one, but I can read the rest of it, no problem. Hi, thoughts on using Jalen Williams over Mark Williams?
It's one of those spots. The ownership is it's going to be a situation. I don't know what the ownership's going to end up as. We don't have that update yet. Let's say Mark Williams is 55% owned, and we'll call Jalen Williams like 3 to 5% owned. Jalen Williams is going to beat Mark Williams more than 1 in 11 times, but in most lineups, you're still going to want to get to Mark Williams because he just is going to project better. You're typically going to be able to find ways to be contrarian that don't involve that move down. So like in a given lineup, if that's what you do, sure, like that can win you a tournament by itself. But for the most part, you're going to want to be getting to Mark Williams and then finding other spots where the gap between how likely someone is to be optimal and how likely the pivot is to be optimal isn't as big.
All right, Mike just sent me the super chat. It was a $10 super chat from Hippopotamus, our boy. And all it said was hit that like. How could you not love these guys? I'm glad I went back to that one. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, they know the drill. We'll get there. Out of 2,200 people, there are people out there that would like to see us get where we need to go. All right, let's talk about Miami. Victor Oladipo is out. Kyle Lowry remains out. Do you think this is a Miami team today? Of course, it's a nice matchup, but the truth is that nice matchups on this slate don't really matter as much as a complete absence in personnel on a lot of these spots.
Miami gets both, so I'm actually surprised you're not getting more ownership here because you have a good matchup and you have likely an 8-man rotation where Jimmy Butler is giving you 35, 36 minutes at 8,400. Tyler Hero just played 40 minutes. He's 7,800. He sucked in that game, granted, but that doesn't really have an impact on what you expect from him tonight. Bam Adebayo is 9,100. Vincent's only 4,500. These guys should all be playing big minutes. One of Caleb Martin or Max Strus should play big minutes. We got 37 last game from Martin, 17 from Strus. On average, that probably balances out a bit. But I'm kind of surprised you're not getting more ownership coming to Miami. I get that there's a lot of good plays from some other teams, but this team is shorthanded. They're playing the Rockets, and they actually have good players available. Whereas, like San Antonio, you're talking about a bunch of shitty guys that are 3K or 4K or whatever. Here, you actually have their best players available, but they have to play big minutes because nobody else is available.
So then who do you like? Because if you're talking about you think some of these guys should have higher ownership, if you were prioritizing them from like Butler down to Hero, Bam Adebayo, Gabe Vincent, where do you draw the line? Like, is there some of these guys, maybe one or two that you like a lot more than the others?
Hero 1 because he has point guard, shooting guard. Butler only has power forward. Bam only has center. Point guard, shooting guard, you can get him into lineups easier. He's also the cheapest of the main three here. And again, I expect him to play huge minutes. Butler would be 2 at 8,400. He's actually pulling the most ownership right now by a slight margin. Vincent's 3 because, again, he's point guard, shooting guard, and he's cheap. I really like Bam, but the problem you run into, again, is as good as Bam looks, he is 3 times the salary of Mark Williams. He is like 2.5 times the salary of Zach Collins. That's a lot to ask for, and so that's why you're not seeing as much ownership to him. But Hero, Butler, Vincent, I'm kind of surprised aren't pulling more.
Minnesota, Memphis. No more D'Angelo Russell. In comes Mike Conley. Minnesota Timberwolves today as well are 7-point dogs, 234.5 point total. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking Rudy Gobert, if he does play, should we be significantly curtailing his minutes right now, or should we just expect him to get back to what he normally plays?
Sorry, I was reading the chat that said the Lakers didn't get better, which is probably the dumbest thing I've seen. What was your
I was saying, like, should we expect to see Rudy Gobert's minutes curtailed again, or should we expect like normal minutes with how he's been questionable and then in and out every day? Like, do you think there's some concerns that they're limiting him?
If he's in, I think he's good. Like when he's been in games, he's played big minutes. It's just that then they hold him out of other games.
Do you like him if he plays?
If he plays, yeah, I like him. If he doesn't play, I like Naz Reid. This team earlier in the day had the potential to just be another one of those like slate breaking teams you had to get to. Now that we have Conley in, it's not as big of a deal, but we are still waiting on the Kyle Anderson news. We're waiting on Gobert. If everybody is in, I don't think this team is overly appealing. Gobert's price tag is probably the most appealing, but he's also a center, and that's just a really, really, really tough position to spend any money at tonight. Edwards, McDaniels, Anderson, all look okay. If Anderson's out, you should get more minutes for McDaniels at 4,400. You should get more minutes for Prince at 3,500. I still don't think either of them would look like a priority on this particular slate, but they would certainly look better.
Okay. So largely Minnesota, another team that just doesn't do a whole lot. Let me, one thing. With Russell gone, just to dig into this a little bit further, and Mike Conley, essentially, who's going to be active today, Mike Conley now taking that role. Do you see it making a big enough difference to make anyone at their current price points significantly better from a per minute perspective, from a usage standpoint, from a playmaking perspective?
It should make Rudy Gobert better.
Okay.
One of the big issues that Minnesota has had this year is that they haven't figured out how to throw lobs to Rudy Gobert outside of Kyle Anderson being able to do it. And now, based on reports that have come out, it appears that they weren't trying very hard. D'Angelo Russell would rather just talk shit about Rudy Gobert, had no interest in learning how to throw him lobs.
Wait, what was he saying?
Oh, you didn't see the reports about
No.
D'Angelo Russell? So, like, the report that came out last night was that D'Angelo Russell was openly, during games, talking shit about Rudy Gobert to opposing coaches and players. Multiple times media members came into the locker room to overhear D'Angelo Russell bitching about having to play with Rudy Gobert, and that D'Angelo Russell had zero interest in figuring out how to play with Rudy Gobert. So now, I already thought this was going to be a bump for Rudy Gobert just because he has played with Mike Conley. It took the Jazz a little bit of time to, figure out how to get him the ball offensively as well. Now that these reports have come out, and it seems like you've had multiple Timberwolves beat writers either confirm it or at least just say no comment. I'm not getting in on this. It seems like this is just true, that D'Angelo Russell was intentionally freezing out Rudy Gobert and not trying to play with him.
Wow. Hey, do you remember the D'Angelo Russell, Nick Young thing?
Yes, I do. So that,
and now he's back in LA.
So that was, you had the one Timberwolves guy that just put all this out there, and I saw somebody ask another Timberwolves writer on Twitter, and he was like, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I will say from a character standpoint, a teammate standpoint, this is a massive upgrade going to Mike Conley.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Wait, this was an anonymous player?
No, this was a Timberwolves beat writer.
Oh, beat writer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were saying that he was reporting on a player.
No. It was one Timberwolves guy just flat out gave the news and was just like, yo, this has been going on all season long.
Damn.
And then somebody asked another beat writer about it. He was like, I'm not going to get into the details yet. There's a lot of stories, but massive character upgrade.
That's crazy. Yeah, for anyone that forgets, Russell was secretly videotaping Nick Young when he asked him, wasn't he asking about if he was getting with other girls and stuff? I think that's what it was. And then it came out.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics. I remember it basically the way I remember it, and again, I don't remember the specifics, is that Russell basically just Snapchatted Nick Young's girlfriend that Nick Young was cheating on him or something along those lines.
Yeah, but he filmed him asking Nick. He was asking
Yeah.
Nick Young questions about it and was covertly recording it.
Right.
What a snake, huh?
Yeah, and he's been that since he got in the league.
But could you imagine walking back into the locker room? Bunch of these guys are grown men, and you just pulled that shit.
Right. Well, and like
retirement
Josh
time.
was saying this morning, he was like, well, to me, the big thing is how many of the Timberwolves players agreed with D'Angelo Russell, not wanting to play with Gobert. It's like, that's not the thing, though. You can not really want to play with the guy. But if you're going out there talking shit about him openly to other teams, like, that's a you thing. That's not like a lot of people are going to agree with.
Right. It doesn't matter what's going on internally.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's for sure. Yes. All right. Anything else for Minnesota?
No.
All right, then. Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Man, listen, a lot of teams have a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. Grizzlies, believe it or not one of them, but you still have Ja Morant. He's expensive, but the dude's an absolute stud. And the truth is you're going to have no problem getting, no issues getting the guys like Ja Morant today, especially with a lot of the value being at the big positions.
Right. I'm surprised Morant's pulling 16%, but also I get it because, like you said, it's just so easy to get there. You're just kind of, it's one of those slates where you're going to end up probably being very condensed on the value that you get to. Spurs guys, Mark Williams, just guys like that. And then you're going to try and spread it out amongst the pay up guys because who really knows who scores the most points out of Jason Tatum, Ja Morant, Joel Embiid, Giannis, all these guys. They obviously all project really, really well, but within one slate, you're just going to have a lot of variance there. Whereas there's not that many sub 4K guys or 4K guys or below that are comparable to Collins or Williams, for example. So Ja Morant is certainly somebody you should be getting to. It's easy to get there. He has a massive ceiling. If you happen to have a lineup that can fit Jaren Jackson, the upside for him is very high as well. He's been playing more minutes. You get the block upside, which is great. But Morant's the guy that I would expect to get to the most.
Is there anyone else?
No.
Outside of who we talked about? All right, let's talk about Cleveland and New Orleans then. Cleveland Cavs, New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, at this point, am I wrong to say that we should just hit on both of these teams at the same time and really just start with Brandon Ingram?
Yeah, I mean, Ingram's the only guy from the Pels that I'm really interested in. He's 7,600. It's still a good price tag. It's up a bit from last time out, but still underpriced. The problem here is, one, he's playing the Cavs, which is about as unappealing a matchup as you can get. And two, it's just a slate where it's going to be really easy to you build a lineup with Brandon Ingram. And then you're just like, oh, wait, what if I turn Brandon Ingram into Ja Morant and I just have to drop one guy elsewhere in my lineup? So that's kind of the problem. But 15% ownership makes sense. He is underpriced here. He is obviously a very high upside option. Other than that, I have zero interest in this team. If I had to go to a second guy, it would be Joval at 5,900. But my big concern with him is he played about as well as you can. He produced about as well as you can in his last game against Atlanta. And he played 24 minutes, and they closed with Larry Nance over him. In that game, I had, in higher stake stuff, I had gone Larry Nance because I knew Joval would be popular, and I wanted that leverage play. And I'm just watching the stats pile up, and I'm like, shit, they're not even going to give Larry Nance his fourth run. And they did, which to me just signaled Joval is kind of hard capped at 24 minutes right now.
He played 26 in that game.
Okay, whatever. 20.
But still, no.
Yeah.
I hear you. He played 20. Well, sorry, 25 and a half. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
For sure.
If there was a game that Joval is going to play his way into 30 plus minutes, it was last game.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, it's so weird too because you and I kind of broke it down. It's he could play 22 minutes and kill you, or he could play 24 minutes and you still need him because he's just such a dominant per minute producer. He had 16 and 14 in 26 minutes, 18 and 14 in 24 minutes the game before that. In 22 minutes the game before that, he had 16 and 13. But this is a pretty shitty matchup.
But that's still the problem. So last game, not having him at 5,700, he dropped 37 DraftKings points. And as it's happening, I'm just shit, I'm screwed. It didn't matter at all because he's the center. Sure. Jokic scored 60-something. Vooch scored 60-something. Today, obviously, it's a different slate, but it's the inverse of before where, let's say Joval scores 38 DraftKings points in his 24 minutes. Great. It's going to feel really bad that you don't have him, except for when Mark Williams scores 30 at 3,200 and Zach Collins scores 30 at 4K.
33. Yeah.
It's just so tough to want to get there.
No, I'm in total agreement with you. I just mean he's a frustrating player is all.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. Do you want anything from Cleveland or from the rest of this Pels team? I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on this game, really.
No, neither do I. For the Cavs, it's just any of the main four guys, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, Allen, if you get to them as a contrarian piece, great, but you're not building around them.
All right. Well, I told you guys that we had a special sponsor that is returning for around the Super Bowl time. Some of you have heard of this before. Some of you haven't, but those of you have had, let me see something in chat right now, because Adam, right here on
Speaking
the
of banging KMK.
we are also brought to you by Breaks of God.
Oh, that one. That's not right.
Oh, yeah, baby. Breaks of God. It's back because you could celebrate the Super Bowl with a free autograph Travis Kelce, AJ Brown, or Devonta Smith mini helmet. Click the link, autograph, by the way, and free. Click the link in the description below. All you got to do, take that finger, scroll down, and click. If we have one, we can throw it in chat as well to learn how to enter the giveaway. The 3 winners are going to be selected during a live box break on Instagram on Super Bowl Sunday. Breaks of God, it's Breaks of God, of course, if you're looking to spell this, but Breaks of God is how we say it around here, is the latest sports card collecting trend to catch fire, and it's how sports card collectors of all ages are building high-value card collections without huge investments or risks. So make sure to keep up with all the latest box breaks and card trends by liking and following them on Instagram at Breaks of God, or as we like to say, at Breaks of God. So check it out in the description, man. They're back. 3, Kelce, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, autograph free. Join the giveaway. Jump in on that. I'm assuming you just jump in. I haven't done it yet. I think I will. Jump in. Links in the description. Breaks of God. Check them out on Instagram and check out that link to get those free autographed mini helmets. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
I thought we were going Manscaped, then that the Kim K conversation in chat had just set it
Breaks
up
of
like
God. Yeah, Breaks of God. Manscaped would be. I just want to talk about the lawnmower 2.0. Like that. They name their stuff so wild. I've already thought about some of the. I've already come up with bits that I would do for that. Like if they were sponsoring us. Like if we had Manscaped reads on the deep, we could come up with some good stuff for sure.
I'm sure you would, and I would probably just be laughing harder than.
We'd have to.
Yeah.
We'd have. To. Yeah. I don't want to give them away. I don't want to give them away, but I got some things bouncing around up in here. All right. Yeah, you just keep timing. All right. OKC and Portland. Let's keep this one rolling here. We got 3 games to go. Then we're turning it over. To Live Before Lock. You got Greg Ehrenberg. You got Neil Orfield taking you up and through lock all the way till 7:30. Those boys got you covered for an hour and a half, man. Going to be a good show, so don't go anywhere. And check out the Stokastic Hall of Fame, where we induct all of you fine people who have finished at the top of tournaments rocking the Stokastic avatar, ducked you into the Hall of Fame, give you that free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Yeah, that's right. All right, anyway, let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder here. Giddey, SGA, Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, like, I mean, just kind of another team today where you don't, and Lou Dort might play. I don't know. They don't have Muscala anymore. What's that do for you?
Right. On a lot of slates, OKC would be really, really appealing. As is, I think SGA is a good tournament play. You know, we mentioned that 15 to 16% ownership coming into John Morant. You only have 5 coming into SGA. They're functionally the same guy in terms of range of outcomes. Morant, you know, projects a little bit better, but SGA still gives you that ceiling. Josh Giddey's up to 8K. Tough to get to him, but he does give you, you know, triple-double upside if everything goes great. Jalen Williams, you know, already came up. Jalen Williams, the center, already came up in chat as a pivot. The issue is that, like, on average, you're only expecting around 22 minutes from him. He did play 31 last game. He played really well against the Lakers. He's also only a 0.92 DraftKings point per minute guy, whereas Mark Williams is 1.2. So when you talk about pivots, Jalen Williams can beat him more than, you know, right now we have Jalen Williams projected for 0.5% ownership. Let's say Mark Williams gets to 40 and Jalen Williams is 2. Jalen Williams is going to beat Mark Williams more than 1 in 20 times, but you're typically going to be better off just finding a different spot to pivot instead of trying to go from the guy that's like, let's say 25% optimal to 3% optimal or something like that. So that's kind of the problem. But there is, you know, certainly tournament upside there. It's just harder for him to get there on this particular slate, given the other options. And beyond Giddey, SGA, and Jalen Williams, the center, I don't think there's anything even worth mentioning from OKC.
Okay. Well, we can still talk about Portland. Damian Lillard, Josh Hart gone, Anthony Simons. I think Lillard falls into the same category, of course, in a nice matchup, but falls into the same category, not entirely as John Morant, but just like, hey, here's another high-priced guard with a monster ceiling that if you would like to get to him, you'll have no problem doing so whatsoever, as well as playing other top-tier players in the same lineup without an issue.
Yeah, exactly. And Lillard's another one that is just pulling more ownership than SGA, and I think he should be more popular. He's playing without Nurkic. He's in a good spot. He's playing more minutes typically than SGA. Like you're getting 37, 38 from Dame, where you're getting 35, 36 from SGA. I also don't think Dame is 4 times more likely than SGA to, have the highest score between the two. So it's a spot where I like Dame, but if you already have a lot of other popular players and you're looking for a pay up guard, going from Dame to SGA is perfectly fine. Simons looks good at 6,800. Grant looks good at 6,700. It's just not really a slate where you need a ton in that price range. But if you do, they both should be playing big minutes. And then from a value standpoint, you do have Nas Little at 3K flat, small forward, power forward. It's likely that he starts tonight. Josh Hart is now on the Knicks. Gary Payton II is now on the Warriors. You probably see Nas Little step into this lineup and play around 30 minutes, give or take. But he is only a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy. So still tough to get excited about him.
We got to circle back to something. Before we do, and I'm talking injury news here, so don't go anywhere. And they'll cover it in Live Before Lock as well. But Peter H., welcome to Team Stokastic, brother. Badge looks good on you, man. And somebody else asked, what's the snack du jour for Sunday? You do pizza, you do wings, and whatever else my wife makes, I will eat. What about you? You doing anything?
Yeah, I'm actually going into my mom's. But nice. I know she'll have wings, she'll have chili, which you won't eat, but I like chili.
Which who won't eat?
Chili.
Who won't eat it?
You don't like chili.
I don't. I didn't know you knew that. Did I tell you that before?
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Things I know about you ranked
I'm not
in my head. Things I know about you are crackhead and doesn't like chili.
Crackheads just don't eat. Yeah. Okay. Listen, people love chili. It's just not for me. So I could never understand the people that went to Wendy's and ordered the cup of chili.
No, I mean, I'm not.
It's probably good chili. Like it probably
to me,
good.
Chili is like pizza to me. Where if you get quote unquote bad chili, it's still good. Like
you like beef stew?
Yeah, I mean it's okay. It's not my favorite. Like there's definitely people that like stew more than me, but yeah.
You like chicken pot pie?
Yes.
Okay. See, I'm not big on like meats and stuff made into a stew or into a pie.
You just like your meat straight?
Slightly. All right, this is a family show. All right. Now that we got through all of that very important stuff, Jordan Clarkson's out.
Yeah, so Colin Sexton looks even better.
Looks real good.
All that stuff I said about THT, he's still risky because he's THT on the Jazz, but they are running out of alternatives, so he's likely to play a bit more. Yeah, so now I do like THT as a value, whereas I really didn't earlier. I love Colin Sexton even more than I did earlier. Markkanen's usage should go up. That's probably the biggest impacts there. Olynyk's going to look a little bit better.
Okay. Dallas and Sacramento. Let's get into the Mavs here. So Kyrie Irving debuted the other day. Luka's out. But Kyrie's expensive, man. Like, yeah, it's a pretty appealing matchup against Sacramento, but are you going Kyrie, or are you going Lillard, or are you going John Morant, or are you going, like, as far as the hierarchy of top tier plays goes today, in terms of, like the 10K plus guys, where does Irving rank?
To me, so excluding Giannis from this, I kind of just want the lower owned ones out of Kyrie, SGA.
So you're cool with because he's 1% right now.
Yeah, I don't really know why he's 1%. They said going into last game he was going to play 34 to 36 minutes. He played 36.7.
37.
It basically just seems like you're going to get 37, 38 minutes from Kyrie. Christian Wood is a higher usage guy than anybody Kyrie was playing with on the Nets when Durant was out. So, like, yeah, he's a little bit overpriced because he's still priced basically for the Nets without Durant. But this is still a really good matchup. It's a really good player. Like, if he's going to be 1% and Lillard's going to be 24, I'd like Lillard better if ownership doesn't matter. But in a lot of lineups, it's a really easy way to just differentiate. Just say, like, cool. I get to play Zach Collins. I get to play Mark Williams. I get to play Colin Sexton. And I'll just take Kyrie instead of Damian Lillard and hope that I run good there because that's not a really big gap at all.
Yeah, that's fair. I totally get that. I do. It is weird to see the disparity in ownership that dramatic. But is there anything else from Dallas then, like at all in the realm of possibility that would make for
not remotely, not at all.
Okay, good. Yeah, just cut me off if there's legitimately nothing like you did. What about on the other side? You mentioned, hey, maybe Sabonis could go for 70 today. I know you're not saying he would, but do you like him at low ownership too? Because he's only center eligible. That makes things a little bit tricky.
Yeah, so like not really, because like, yeah, he could have that big game. But the thing with Sabonis is you need him. He's 10-3. So like you still realistically need him to beat Lillard, SGA, Kyrie, Morant, which if that was the only problem is one thing. But then you also need the really cheap centers not to have big games because you don't have the same kind of value at guard and forward. And if you're going to Sabonis, it means that you're giving up at least one of Mark Williams, Zach Collins, other cheap centers. So I mean, it's not like I'm ever going to look at a Sabonis lineup and say I don't like it, but I think it's going to be very, very hard for me to get to Sabonis. I think it's going to be hard for me to get to Fox as well. The upside is there. It's just not that difficult to get from Fox to Dame or SGA or Kyrie, whatever it may be on the slate. So it's really tough for me to like anything from Sacramento.
All right. Yeah. Well, then we got one game to go. Also, the lineup generator has been crushing because we had somebody win 50K off the lineup generator the other day. And then I wake up to a tweet this morning with somebody taking down 10K on the lineup generator with just a lineup generator does it again, almost took it down. Glad at least one of our guys won. You guys rock. It was Brazil. Yeah, 10K on FanDuel. And then the winner also had a stochastic avatar, which was pretty sweet. The lineup generator, dude, if you don't have a ton of time, like if you're jumping in here after work, or even if you just want something to help you build lineups, where the process behind this is incredible. I'm gonna have to get Alex on one day to really explain how it was built because it's amazing. It's running all of these lineups, and then it's taking with the simulation, taking all of the top like 1% lineups and putting them in here, and you can choose the ones you like. You can select tournament, cash game, whatever, all lineups. You can do contrarian lineups depending on how you're playing, what size field, whether it's cash, tournament, single entry, or whatever. And you can go through, you can save as many as you want. You can export them to CSV. We just added it now. Skip that one, Mike, so you can see the other thing. So we just added one now. You can also swap players out. So if you really like a lineup, but you want to see what it looks like elsewhere, what the ownership, what the projection looks like, you can swap players out. And it's optimized for your phone. It's awesome. It's awesome. I've been using it lately as well. I'm telling you guys, you will love this, especially if there are times where you're like, hey, I just kind of need to get these lineups in. I'll pick them. I want to have some say in what I'm doing, but I don't have time to go through everything today. These are our projections, our ownership, everything that's hand-fed, spoon-fed to you. 50% off the first week. That means it's like $4.40 for the first week. So if you're even playing a couple dollars a day, massive deal here. And if you don't like it, if you don't think it's for you, all good. But yeah, you're talking $4 for the entire week. Links in the description. Mike, throw the link in the chat if anyone wants to check the lineup generator out as well. Really cool tool, and it's brand new here for NBA. All right, let's wrap this one up. Adam, we'll close it out with the Milwaukee Bucks and the LA Clippers. This game at a pick'em. So a pick'em, no Kawhi Leonard, no Chris Middleton, of course, still no Bobby Portis, no Mason Plumlee, no Eric Gordon, no Bones Highland. They acquired a lot of guys, none of them making their debuts today. Giannis Antetokounmpo, is he your favorite top-tier player today?
Yeah, I mean, he's different. Like you have all of these guards that look really good and all of that, but Giannis is just a better point per minute guy. You're expecting 34, 35 minutes out of him. Not a bad matchup against a shorthanded Clippers team. Giannis is relatively easy to get to. He also has forward eligibility, which, on this slate, you have a lot of guards, you have a lot of centers, not that many forwards. So yeah, Giannis is easy to get to. Certainly want to get there a lot.
Okay. Yes, Phil, the projections they're auto updated. They update quickly, especially closer to lock. So you're getting everything updated for sure. If you're doing something like, if you're getting the lineup generator, everything's auto updated. RADM, Rad M, Powell, Edwards, or Booker? Adam, Powell, Edwards, or Booker?
Powell, Edwards, or wait.
It's an odd question.
A 1v1? Edwards?
Yeah, I mean, the prices are okay. Yeah. Edwards then. Thanks for the super chat. Anything else in Milwaukee, or we want to close it out with the Clippers here?
No, it's pretty much just Giannis. Like, if you get to Drew, sure, don't delete the lineup, but also probably won't get to much Drew.
All right, nice segue into the Clippers. Wrap us up. Hey, by the way, appreciate all you guys hanging with us. Don't go anywhere. We're 11 likes from 500. We will crush that before the show lets out to the intermission and then live before lock with all 2,600 of you watching. So thank you in advance. What do you want to do with Norman Powell today? What do you want to do with Paul George with no Kawhi Leonard? Floor is yours.
Yeah, so Powell looks good. 35% ownership is probably a bit aggressive, but shooting guard, small forward, 5,700, just going to be easy to fit him into basically whatever sort of build that you are making. Overall this year, 14 games without Kawhi and with George. 0.81 DraftKings points per minute, obviously not exciting, but 24% usage rate. The upside is certainly there for him. This is a very shorthanded Clippers team. He's likely to play a lot. 4K, Terrence Mann, also likely to play a lot. Not a great point per minute guy, but just underpriced for the current role on the shorthanded team. George is really interesting in that he's only 8,900. He's shooting guard, small forward. He's playing without Kawhi. We had Ty Lue say the other day that they're going to limit George and Kawhi's minutes going into the All-Star break. I have no idea what that means. Like, does that mean instead of playing 39 minutes, George is going to play 36? Does that mean that they're going to give Kawhi today off and next game George is going to sit?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. I think projecting him around 34 minutes makes sense. But if he plays 38 minutes tonight, it's just going to be example number like 1,005 of NBA coaches lying their asses off, and nobody should be surprised. So I do like the tournament upside. It's just, it works out that this is a slate where like there's a lot of good tournament plays that you can get to without having to worry about if George really is limited to like 30 or 32 minutes. So I don't think I'm going to get to a lot, but man, it's not going to be surprising if he plays way more than people think. Marcus Morris at 4,300, only pulling 3% is actually kind of surprising to me. He played 30 minutes last game. He had played like 34 a few games ago. He played 17 in the first half before getting ejected 2 games ago. Not that I think he's a great player or anything, or that you're like starving for value on this slate, but I am kind of surprised that Marcus Morris isn't looking a little bit better at 4,300.
Hey, man, good show. Fun stuff.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to go smoke some rock.
Good.
We'll see you guys soon. Follow Adam and Shit My Money DFS. Follow me.
At least you have a basement now. You don't have to like go to the alley.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you were always in the alley. So it's not like you're going anywhere.
Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere.
Follow me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Mike for producing. Greg, Neil coming up next. Lineup generator breaks again. No house advantage. All that in the description. Check it out. Get all that discount, all that good stuff. And we'll see you back here Sunday for the Super Bowl, baby. Later. Again, we're back to induct you fine people into the Hall of Fame right here at Stokastic.com and give out some Stokastic Plus Platinum memberships, $120 value. All you need to do to get involved, get yourself up here, get the free month, is go to Stokastic.com/avatar, download the avatar, use it wherever you play. And when you win, finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF on Twitter, at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Get your free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and I'll induct you right here every single week. And we got some great ones today, kicking it off with Mike Jasbeck. Yet another reason why Stokastic DFS is the best of the best. Tools are second to none. They provide absolute best content out there. Shout out to all the guys who do the live shows. Keep the amazing content coming, fellas, and thanks for all you do. $20,000 win, second place in the Thursday NBA shot. Great way to kick this one off. But also, how about Avi? Avi's always hanging out with us, been kind and generous with his super chats over the years. We appreciate you. I know who you are, man. Thanks for the tips. Biggest win of my life, $20,000. Another second place in the NBA shot. And then you got our boy Greg Ehrenberg going back-to-back. Spent most of the night complaining about DFS slate, turned the games off to go to bed, woke up to find the slate actually wasn't bad, $5,000. How about that? First place in the NBA shot. And then Greg Ehrenberg, again, the people who thought I could only win with 600 lineups are in shambles. I came in first in a 20 max entry contest last night with only 40 lineups. What are the haters going to say this time? Shout out to our boy Greg. You'll see him right after this on Live Before Lock. And then Smitty, 1,850, a very simple man, at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Nice win there, man. Matt Fukuda, at Stokastic, actually ran good tonight. Thanks, Greg and Neil and the entire Stokastic crew. $1,600 win over there on DraftKings. Shout out to you, Matt. And also to Zachary Williamson. Stat correction placed me above a 7-man train. $500 swing. Took second place in the end one. That's huge. Followed up by Kenny Herron. Shout out to the entire Stokastic team, but especially Josh Ingham. Josh getting the personalized shout out for the process show. Yep, 6:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. And Greg killing it every day on Live Before Lock. Give me that free month. You got it, brother. First place in the hot shot, $750. And then how about we've got Jim McCorkle. I love the tools and the shows. I'm really starting to see the results. Almost got to the top of the mountain. It's been a while. Thanks to Stokastic. Hey, still enough to get you in the door. 252nd in the NHL hip check. Followed up by Pete Prado. Holy crap, on the first day I purchased and used the lineup generator. You guys rock. So $30 win here, but guess what? $120 subscription. Free. And inducted in the Hall of Fame for Pete here. Four times what he just made on that. But look at it. Lineup generator, first day. Throws some entries into the quarter jukebox and takes down first place. Great stuff, Pete. And Pedro, I love seeing this. The NBA Bet Pro tool is brand new. The first week is entirely free. Pedro says, thanks to Stokastic. Hit this parlay last night. Best tool in the game is NBA Bet Pro. 51 in the 720. 4-leg parlay. And then Pedro hits us with another one. NBA Bet Pro on point. Thanks to Stokastic. $10 into $1,600 parlay. What are we looking at? 7 legs in that one? Yeah. Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. And we close it with the professor. Trust the projections. Thanks to the team. Solid win during a little fantasy slump. This dude just went on an absolute tear with the parlays. Shout out to the professor and everybody else. Welcome to the Stokastic Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted. Collect your free subscriptions for
This is a new jam. I like this one better than whatever that other shitty one was you had the other day. What's going on, everybody? Greg Ehrenberg here from Stokastic.com. We got into a little NBA Live Before Lock show Friday nights, so there is no Eric. Instead, we've got Neil Orfield here to help break down all the action. And very much influenced today's slate by the NBA trade deadline. A lot of players that are opening up as value options just as a result of all the players that were shipped away yesterday and new guys in new situations. We're about to talk through all of that. So as you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, not just for us, but also for DJ Mike Lawrence in the background here. Neil, what is happening? How is your week going?
Week is going well. It's coming quickly to an end. I've been starting to do some of my final NFL content for the year. I did my article today. I just recorded my DraftKings Fantasy Cruncher video, so I've just got to do my FanDuel, and then you and I have a show tomorrow on the NFL. But getting towards the end of NFL content, now moving over to NBA stuff. However, I'm going to Puerto Rico on Tuesday, so I'm going to be out most of next week, just getting grindy now for a few more days, and then vacation coming up after the Super Bowl. How you doing?
Well, I'm not as good as going to Puerto Rico or anything. I'm just, I'm going to be here getting ready for the NBA All-Star game. But yeah, we are going to have a little bit of a lighter week next week just because the NBA All-Star game is coming up. Just going with your wife. Is there anybody else going as well?
My wife and then her sister and her sister's husband are going as well.
Nice. And is her sister husband, you just tell me, you don't have to, is her sister husband, is he cool?
I like them quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's and they're only around for a little while longer. He is in the military. They're going to the Middle East, not like combat or anything like that, but they're going to be leaving the country next year. So we've only got them in the States a little bit longer.
All right, I'm happy you qualified that because when you said he's only going to be here for a while longer, that could go a number of different ways. I was like, oh, boy, this took a turn here, but yeah, so that should be fun. Enjoy your time in Puerto Rico, and of course, before then, you're going to get to enjoy some post NBA trade deadline NBA slate, which just features some guys who we've really hardly rostered this year, all of a sudden just becoming massive, massive chalk options, and some of them even more so based on the most recent news we got, because already the Utah Jazz were going to be a team a lot of the field was getting to, because at the trade deadline, Mike Conley was traded. We saw Nickeil Alexander-Walker trade, which normally wouldn't matter, except with Mike Conley also traded. It's just one less guy to potentially soak up minutes. And now we have that Jordan Clarkson isn't going to play, which somewhat was expected just because he was questionable, missed shoot around with an illness. It was trending towards him not being available. Now that he is going to be out, this is the first piece of news that we're seeing today that's really going to significantly impact our lineups, because Colin Sexton is fairly cheap on FanDuel, but really cheap on DraftKings. $5,200 on FanDuel, $4,000 on DraftKings. What is this doing now to the Utah Jazz that Jordan Clarkson has been rolled out?
It's making, as you said, Colin Sexton is going to look great. THT, Talon Horton-Tucker, also going to project really well from a fantasy point per minute or per dollar standpoint. He's just 3,400. So both Sexton and THT looking great for now. I think those are the only two that really stand out in terms of value. It's funny though. I just looking at the value column on fantasy. That's usually what I look at first to kind of see who are the best point per dollar plays on the slate. And oftentimes we'll get slates where it's like the best value on the entire slate is like 6 or 6.2. That's like their salary, 6x of their salary, whatever. We've got several players that are 8+ here. So both THT at 8, Colin Sexton at 8, and there are 5 players ahead of them in terms of that value column. We just have so much value on this slate, and some of it is like really can't miss, like guys that we really don't want to leave out of lineup. So we've got options tonight. Yeah,
and just going through some of the most recent ownership projections we have here, and I actually think Mark Williams, just one thing that stands out to me a little bit, I don't think we have Mark Williams ownership projected high enough. Just I personally think, especially on DraftKings, he's going to be massively popular. But rolling through some of these guys right now, our most projected players, we've got and this is an 11-game slate. You don't usually get guys that are this chalky on an 11-game slate. But for DraftKings, Zach Collins projected for 59% ownership, Colin Sexton 54%, Stanley Johnson 54%, and then some other super popular plays. Now we've got Giannis Antetokounmpo projected for 46% ownership, THT at 45%. I'll read off the most popular FanDuel plays as well, given the most recent news. We've got THT at 54%, Zach Collins 43%, Blake Wesley 31.5%, and then Isaiah Roby 30%. Giannis also at 30%. So for an 11-game slate, this is an aggressive amount of chalk, but I do find it to be fairly hard to avoid some of these pieces. It seems like you were kind of leaning on the same page, but like, what are you thinking when you look at, all right, this is an 11-game slate. Colin Sexton's 54% owned, Zach Collins 59%. Are you going to be riding with the field on some of these chalk players, or are you going to pivot? Are you going to differentiate elsewhere? Like, how are your lineups going to look like just in the broad picture with this much chalk on an 11 gamer?
Yeah, so that is a very good question that I'm not sure that I can quite answer yet. I do lean on the boom bust tool a little bit here. So, you're looking at Zach Collins projected for 59% ownership. He has a 72.5% chance of booming in the boom bust tool, 41% chance of being optimal. So honestly, looks like the field is getting about right. I kind of do wonder though, if we have that ownership projection a little bit high and Mark Williams is a little bit low right now, just because I could see I've been hearing more buzz, I think, about Mark Williams today, and it would not surprise me to see them pretty close, or at least a lot closer than the gap that we have right now. So I kind of expect Williams to come in a little bit higher. Maybe Zach Collins then comes in a little bit lower, just because there are so many great center options. Like, it seems 59% honestly seems too high to me on an 11 game slate where there are this many good center options. Like, just objectively, he obviously projects extremely well for a $4,000 center, but then just looking at all of the other options at center, like, I wouldn't be shocked if Mark Williams outscores Zach Collins. I think that it's, almost a coin flip. Like, I think it's going to be pretty close there, which one of them is the higher scorer. And then we just have a number of other center options on the slate that are kind of interesting as well. So, yeah, my guess is that I'll be under the field on Zach Collins. It's not that I don't think he's a great play. I'm not like going out of my way to like really go well under the field, but I think just based on the number of other options here, maybe I'll be a little. I'm not even confident that I will be though. How are you feeling about Zach Collins as a play?
Well, if this is actually what it's going to be heading into lock, where we have Mark Williams projected for less than half of the ownership of Zach Collins, we have about third the ownership of Zach Collins. I much prefer Mark Williams if this is actually going to be the case. Now, I do expect this to change in a little bit, but if it's Mark Williams at like 20% or Zach Collins at 60%, Mark Williams is a pretty easy pivot to me.
Yeah, no, I am totally on the same page with you there. I think at these ownership levels, I would definitely be higher on Mark Williams and Zach Collins. Of course, you can play two centers, so I imagine I'll also have a number of lineups that have both of them in there. But yeah, if I had to choose one based on these ownerships, if it stayed like this, I'd be going Mark Williams over Zach Collins, I think.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning right now. And by the way, we got some super chats that came in. First, from a Brajal Patel saying, "Thank you guys and good luck everyone tonight. Neil, truly appreciate your single game content. Got so much better because of you." So if you guys haven't checked out the content that Neil is doing, you guys should really go check that out, especially for the single game, the Super Bowl coming up, because Neil, you just said you just recorded that video. Is it up on the YouTube channel now, or is it going up soon?
I don't believe it is up yet. Actually, I think Chris had just slacked me, and Chris is in chat too. Just said exporting. I just sent it to him not long ago, and I haven't even done the FanDuel one yet. So I don't know if he'll wait for the FanDuel one to come out, but it'll be out sometime either tonight or tomorrow. I actually don't know when I'm going to have time to record the FanDuel one. Probably have to be tomorrow morning. But yeah, the DraftKings one might be out now. Maybe if Chris is still in chat, maybe he can answer that. But yeah, it'll be out soon, certainly with plenty of time before the Super Bowl. And that's just how I'm setting up my fantasy cruncher. As I said, I also, if you go on my Twitter page, you can see that I posted my Super Bowl article already with my thoughts on players and such.
Yeah, which is super valuable. By the way, actually, I did have a couple people messaging me on Twitter just asking what is the best way to go about building DFS lineups for the Super Bowl. And go check out the stuff that Neil is doing. It's free. And it's super useful, especially if you guys are building lineups in Fantasy Cruncher and aren't sure how to make settings for the Super Bowl. Do you think, what are the chances we get a solo winner in the DK $6 million contest on Sunday?
Kind of low, just because of the size of the contest. And I don't know. And I think that, even if we get somebody like Sky Moore or Jody Fortson in the winning lineup, I still think they're going to be at least like 2 or 3% owned, and in a field that size, I think it's unlikely that we get a solo winner. How do you think?
I mean, especially how many entries is it in total? Like 400,000 or something?
It's something
insane?
ridiculous. Yeah, I don't even know.
It's like the biggest contest I've ever seen before. But either way, there's $1 million to first place, and it is the Super Bowl. So guys, go check out Neil's content, because that is going to be really valuable if you guys want to figure out the best way to use your settings in Fantasy Cruncher for the Super Bowl. And Brajal, thank you very much for the super chat. A couple more of these coming in. This from Quinn London, Quinn Lundeen. Boy, did I butcher the shit out of that name. Jalen Williams and Devontae Graham, good pivots. Jalen Williams and Devontae Graham. So if I'm not mistaken, we just saw a note from Greg Popovich, who said that he's unsure what his starting lineup is going to end up being today. Now, here's what's funny about slates like this. I think there's a lot of players you can find as good pivots. Like Devontae Graham is somebody we've got projected for over 20 fantasy points on DraftKings at a flat minimum salary. So he is certainly somebody that I think you could make a case for. Is there safety there? No, not at all, because I don't think we could have any kind of real confidence in what his role is going to be. But for low ownership, we've got him projected for like none. Yeah,
if he's starting, yeah.
I thought the news was, and let me double check, is that the Spurs were unsure what their starting lineup is going to be.
Yeah, I'm saying that they're going to give us the starting lineup at some point. If he is starting, I would definitely have. Devontae Graham is a guy who's been a great fantasy producer in the past. Certainly, he has not been as good this year, 0.79 fantasy points per minute. But new team playing up against this Detroit defense, that game could just be it could be sloppy, and we could see some great fantasy scoring there. So I don't, especially if he is in the starting lineup, I actually think Devontae Graham will be a very strong pivot option, or not even a pivot. You can play him along some of these other value plays as well, but he'll be a very strong play if he is in that starting lineup. And also, Jalen Williams, we just saw him have a huge game, I don't know, a few nights ago. He's definitely somebody who can put up the night that both the Jalen Williams has had huge games. He's just 3,200. Definitely, he's in play at really low ownership. Especially we've got him projected for 25 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get more run than that. Isn't I think Mike Muscala. Wait, what was the latest news? I just got news on Mike Muscala. Oh, he's on Boston now. That's right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't factor in there. Okay.
We certainly some weird trades, weird people in weird places. Kind of odd that the Celtics did go out and get Mike Muscala, considering they already have a bunch of centers and big men like, Loughran, Blake Griffin types that aren't really part of the rotation. But Devontae Graham, I think I can make a case for as a pivot. And then, like you said, too, especially if he starts, if we end up getting that Spurs starting lineup, he's in the starting unit, that would make a whole big difference. Now, as for Jalen Williams, by the way, this is Jalen Williams with a Y. We've had this confusion a bunch this year. Two different Jalen Williamses on the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's Jalen Williams with a Y, and there's Jalen Williams, Jalen, Jalen Williams. So we're talking about Jalen Williams with a Y here. Considering that he's only center eligible, he's not somebody I'm going to be playing. Devontae Graham, if he starts, yes. Jalen Williams with a Y, less so for me, Quinn. But for you, Neil, Jalen Williams, Jaylin, is he somebody you have interest in?
So I'm only playing, I think, like 22 lineups tonight. I don't imagine that I will have any Jalen Williams. I think in a 150 set, if you are setting up for 150, I might have a little bit. We just saw he put up 38 fantasy points in that last game against the Lakers. If he gets the minutes, he's not a great fantasy producer, but he's at least shown that little bit of upside. But honestly, that's his only really good game. He had one game at 29.5 fantasy points. He hasn't really had a ton of really solid games. And just given all the other value here, he wouldn't be my favorite. I think that I'd rather go to Devontae Graham if he started. I see Chuck Deuces in chat, I believe, is saying that Pop said that Devontae Graham is definitely not starting. So I missed that piece of news if that's true. But yeah, if Devontae Graham is not starting, then it's a little bit thinner, just because we have so much value here that you don't necessarily need to go to bench guys, I think.
Yeah, let me see if I could find what the news item was on the starting lineup. While I pull that up, also, we got another super chat here. This is from Ben Anthony. Which Tate is better tonight, Andrew Tate or Jay Sean Tate? So shout out to the time that EMAC called, I believe it was, I'm pretty sure it was Jay Sean Tate, that EMAC went an entire show calling him Andrew Tate. As for today, I will not be playing Jay Sean Tate, and Andrew Tate has been left out of the DFS player pool. So neither of them for me tonight. Thank you for the super chat, Ben Anthony. And then we got a super chat here from Jay. It just says DK tiers, but there's no, did I miss something? Jay, DK tiers. Jay, if there's a follow-up to that, let me know. As of right now, it just says DK tiers.
I'm trying to scroll up and I don't see anything else from Jay. So
yeah, Jay, don't have to leave us another super chat. Just throw me a question in the YouTube comments, whatever your question is. Is it a specific tier you want to know about? The players I like the most? Whatever it is, let me know. And I am running some tiers lineups for you right now. So whatever it is that you have a question about, I will be able to have an answer for you shortly. Just let me know whatever it is that your question actually is there as I run this. I have a feeling he wants to know one of two things, either who our favorite players are in a certain tier or just the best players across all of the tiers. So Jay, yeah, just throw that into the YouTube chat and we'll be able to answer that. Sir Ruin of House Roundhead. Interesting to see you covering the NBA. So used to the NFL with you two. Will you be covering the XFL? I think our XFL coverage is still a little bit up in the air, unless you know something I don't know, Neil.
Yeah, no, that is true. I've been talking with Nolan pretty regular about it because I have interest in potentially doing some XFL content. Had some success in XFL in 2020 and that little 5-game span. So definitely interests me. Of course, I will be in Puerto Rico getting back on the Saturday that the first games start. So I'm probably not going to be doing it the first week. But yeah, the last I've heard, it's still up in the air. Gajeski would have to do the projections for it. Hopefully we'll get some Matt Gajeski XFL content, but I think it's up in the air.
Yeah, and I'm looking, going back to Jay's question to see if he threw anything else in the chat here. No, nothing else yet. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. He just added in best players across the 11-game slate for all tiers. Okay, I could answer that for you. So I ran tiers lineups. Here's who I got the most of in each tier. Tier 1, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Tier 2, Damian Lillard. Tier 3, Domantas Sabonis. Tier 4 was Anthony Edwards. Tier 5, Bam Adebayo. Tier 6 was Jimmy Butler. So Jay, I hope that answers your question. If there's anything more specific you want to know, pivot plays, somebody else, just throw it into the YouTube chat and I'll answer that as well. But that's the answer I have for you that I think covers what it is you're looking for. Ace of Spade wants to know Lillard, SGA, or Morant for DK tiers. So this is for the second tier, and I think Lillard is the best play there. The ones were Lillard, SGA, Morant. So of those 3 players, how would you answer, Neil? I went with Lillard, but he wants to know Lillard, SGA, or Morant. Don't have to consider salary here. Just who you think is the best option of those 3?
Lillard, SGA, or Morant. I just want to say that I did confirm Tom Orsborn. People in chat were pointing out Tom Orsborn did get that quote from Popovich that Devontae Graham will not be starting. He's the one player that is definitely not starting. Yeah, it would be Lillard for me. Gets a great matchup with OKC. He just projects the best of the group for me, or for Stokastic, I should say by more than a few points, right? So you say Lillard, Morant, and wait, who is the third one?
It was Lillard, Morant, or SGA.
Yeah, so Lillard is just the best projected player of that group by a few fantasy points. Great matchup with OKC. So, yeah, ownership agnostic, I would go with Lillard.
Yeah, so there we go. We are on the same page with that. I'm going to check Discord really quick to see what we have going on there. But also, we're sponsored by No House Advantage today. Mike, can you do me a favor? Can you just check to see where we're at with overlay on NHA, see if there's any of that cooking on Friday night? Because there very, very frequently is overlay over at No House Advantage. It's overlay you're not going to find on DraftKings. You're not going to find on FanDuel. And it's something that you should be taking advantage of because, number one, overlay, great thing to have. But also, when you sign up at No House Advantage using our link, it's going to get you up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. But in addition to that, they have props you play against the house. So you might be in a state where you can't bet on sports. You can't bet on DraftKings, can't bet on FanDuel, BetMGM, any of the sports books. There's a pretty good chance you have the ability to bet props against the house over at No House Advantage. And we have projections for you right over an NBA Bet Pro on Stokastic.com. And if you guys want to get a 7-day free trial to that, we also have a link to that below. And that is going to help you find the best props over at NHA. But Mike, do you know how much overlay there is over there right now?
Yeah. We're at 22% on the $10,000 contest.
Okay. So the contest is a $10,000 prize pool, and it is only 22% full right now, which, just doing some math here, that means 78% of it is unfull. So 78% of the lineups are still unused there. And that's a lot of lineups you guys could go throw in there right now. Pretty good chance to cash those right now because with the contest only 22% full, it would mean that as of right now, pretty much every single lineup in that contest is going to end up cashing. So go take advantage of the overlay over at NHA if you guys have not signed up yet. The next super chat we have here is from Olrat14. If you had to lock button of the night on DK. So if you could only lock one player in tonight, Neil, who would that player be?
It's a good question. So I mean, man, Mark Williams looks great. He is only center eligible though. I don't really trust Stanley Johnson enough to lock button him. It might be Colin Sexton just because he has both point guard and shooting guard eligibility, 4 different places you can use him. Um, yeah, I think I no, I think I would go with Mark Williams. I just don't really see a way for Mark Williams. I mean, obviously there are ways for any player to fail. He can get in foul trouble. Maybe he just plays 24 minutes and plays a little bit before his means, but at 3,200, it's so hard for Mark Williams to fail as a 1.21 fantasy point per minute guy. Should be starting, probably playing at least 24 minutes, and there's a chance that he spikes and upside for higher. So I think I'm just going to go with Mark Williams here. How about you?
Yeah, I am. I think Mark Williams is a really good choice. I'm going to say Colin Sexton, though, just to make it a little bit different. Sexton's another guy. It's hard to imagine him failing in this spot, just considering all the players who are out now for Utah. And, Utah earlier in the year had a bunch of depth, and that is just not the case right now. So here is the situation that we have with Colin Sexton. Now that there is no Mike Conley, there is no Jordan Clarkson, these are the guards that Utah has available today. There's Colin Sexton. There is Talen Horton-Tucker, who's actually kind of even more of a wing. We've got Agbaji, and we've got Leandro Bolmaro. That's really it. Like that's all we're looking at in the backcourt. So even in a potential blowout scenario, I think we could see Colin Sexton playing garbage time. And that's something else, too, that I think could end up helping Mark Williams is the Celtics are double-digit favorites because the Hornets have sucked this year. This has not been a good team. If this game is a blowout, I have very little doubt that Mark Williams would be playing garbage time in that spot. That he would just be out there in the fourth quarter in garbage run. That's the best case scenario for him. Like you said, this is a guy who's averaging well over a fantasy point per minute. He might be playing against backups for like the entire fourth quarter. That's probably the best case scenario for him is that the game is lopsided, which, double-digit spread is fairly likely. So, yeah, I think Mark Williams is another pretty strong option there.
Can I ask you something? So I did not pay attention to who was Plumlee traded for. Like, is Mark Williams the starting center for Charlotte for the rest of the year? Just
yes.
Okay. I still agree with you. He's still likely to play in garbage time. Maybe makes it slightly less likely if he is their guy going forward. But yeah, I still think he's a young guy. He's probably playing garbage time.
Yeah, he's a rookie. They use draft capital on him, and the team is just going nowhere at this point. I'm surprised they didn't trade more players, to be honest, at the trade deadline. Like, I don't understand what the purpose was in holding on to like Gordon Hayward. Like, what is Gordon Hayward going to do for you
Kelly
the
Oubre.
rest of this year?
Yeah, I don't understand why they wouldn't trade him either.
Yeah, and they didn't trade Mason Plumlee for very much. Mason Plumlee was traded for Reggie Jackson, who has already been bought out in a second-round pick. So they just moved Mason Plumlee. I assume that was a move to, I don't know what the cap situation was, but it probably saved Michael Jordan some bucks in his pocket. And it doesn't really do much for them in terms of basketball sense, but it opens up Mark Williams to play a whole bunch more. Alexander Bayer saying it could be Nick Richards. I don't think there's any purpose to that. If the game's a blowout, just play Mark Williams. They've been trying to get him more minutes the entire year. It would just be easy.
Yeah, no, I assume that that Mark Williams is going to be starting again. I guess we don't know that for sure. I don't think we have the lineup out, but that is the assumption. Obviously, if Nick Richards is starting, then I would move away from Mark Williams as a lock button. I would still probably play him some, but that would change the equation if Nick Richards is starting.
And let me check the Discord channel to see what other questions we have that have come in over the course of the show. This one is from Miami High Life. Last guy in DK GPP for the utility spot, Mark Williams or Talen Horton-Tucker. Both are really strong options. I prefer Mark Williams, though.
I do too. And especially in the utility spot, I mean, it doesn't matter the position agnostic. I really like Mark Williams.
And then we've got some more super chats here. This one is from Jake Lindland. Thoughts on Devontae Graham if he's not starting? Yeah, so now that we know that he's not going to be starting, if you're playing like 1, 3, 5, even up to 20 lineups, I wouldn't play Devontae Graham. If you're somebody who's 150 maxing, which is not going to apply to a lot of you guys, I would say that you could have him as like a 5% on dart throw or something like that in your player pool. But with him not starting, I would not recommend you play him if you're just playing a handful of lineups.
Yep. I say same exact response. He's just there's enough value on this slate that it's not necessary to play bench guys, I think. And you as you said, in a 150 set, I'd probably have some Devontae Graham just because he's going to be really low owned. He is cheap. He does get a great matchup with the Pistons. He could still play significant minutes off the bench, but probably not inclined to go there in just a few lineups.
The next question here is from Cheyenne DeWald. PJ 13 minutes limit question mark? Sort of. This isn't a scenario. So here's what we know about the Clippers. They are going to not extend the minutes of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but like, I don't look at it as like Paul George is playing 26 minutes or anything like that. That's not quite the scenario. It's just we're not going to see like the upper bound limit of Paul George's minutes. Now, with that said, Paul George depends what site you're playing at, because I actually think on FanDuel at $8,200, Paul George with shooting guard, small forward eligibility, I think that he's a pretty decent looking option there. But if you're looking at him on DraftKings, I have much less interest in him at $8,900 on DK. So depends what site. $8,900 on DK, that's a pass for me. $8,200 Paul George on FanDuel, I do like. But Paul George, is he somebody you're getting to on DraftKings, Neil?
I don't think I'm necessarily getting there. I mean, he's certainly in play with Kawhi out. We're projecting for just 4.6% ownership. So actually, yeah, that is kind of interesting. Paul George, we only have projected for 32 minutes. It wouldn't surprise me to see a few more than that from Paul George. So I think that he is a fine play, just not a real priority.
Yeah, and once again, different on DraftKings compared to FanDuel just because of the difference in salary. And also still not all that popular on FanDuel. So I like him there. And then the other question, and the reason I assumed Cheyenne's question was for FanDuel, because the follow-up is, do you like Wesley on FanDuel? So when it comes to Blake Wesley is another pretty good value option over on DraftKings at 3K. And then over on FanDuel, where Wesley is the flat minute 3,500. Still, I think that's one of the best value plays really on both sites, but also FanDuel, DraftKings, min price on both sites. I like getting into Blake Wesley. Is Blake Wesley one of the value plays that you are getting today as a fairly chalky option?
Yeah, I imagine I'll have some Blake Wesley. I mean, he plays point guard, shooting guard. Those are spots that there are a lot of great options. He's not somebody that I'm like really trying to jam in. We've got him projected for just under 32 minutes. Or I guess just over 31 minutes, which is where the interest comes in. He is the min price. It's not a great fantasy producer, 0.71 fantasy points per minute this season, but the matchup is great. If he gets a start, I'm definitely going to have some shares of Blake Wesley. And I guess the field's at 22% seems like a fine amount of Blake Wesley.
Yeah, so Blake Wesley, also, Cheyenne didn't really say whether this was a cash or a tournament question.
We do have him. I will say this on in the boom bust for DraftKings. We have Blake Wesley booming 56% of the time, optimal 21% of the time. So, looks like a pretty solid play.
Yeah, FanDuel and DraftKings. I think Blake Wesley is one of the better cheap options to get to. The next question here is from RADM. Who would you replace in this lineup? Ingram, Stanley Johnson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Zach Collins, SGA, Sexton, Horton Tucker. By the way, we just got the starting lineup for the Spurs. Spurs starting lineup is Wesley, Branham, Ketta Bates-Diop, Isaiah Roby, and Zach Collins. So nothing too crazy there.
Stanley Johnson not in the starting lineup. Were we anticipating that?
I was not. I know that he's really popular, but I didn't think he was going to start.
Yeah. So, I mean, answering that last question, Stanley Johnson just, has not an incredible, I guess he's up this year, 0.93 fantasy points per minute. I imagine that's higher than his career average. He's never been an incredible fantasy producer. So if he's not starting, we can't really count on the minutes. I think Stanley Johnson is somebody at 54% owned. I'm going to be under the field there.
Yeah, he's somebody I've been really confused by the ownership on a lot of these slates with Stanley, because this is not the first time we've seen a massively chalky Stanley Johnson. I'm actually not sure I've rostered him once this year. And a lot of it, too, is just because he's been projected for this massive ownership on some slates. And I've not been a massive fan of Stanley Johnson on any given slate this year, especially because it's so hard to project some of these Spurs rotations. It's like, why would I want to play Stanley Johnson when he's projected for all of the ownership in the world compared to, like any other min price guy who's also coming off the bench? So, Stanley Johnson to me is way, way too popular.
Yeah. How do you feel? People are asking a lot of questions about Josh Okogie. How do you feel about Josh Okogie tonight?
Yeah, so he had a massive game yesterday, but keep in mind, there was no Devin Booker yesterday. Just
And
totally
he's not
different.
he started for the Timberwolves for like at least one full season and was never a great fantasy producer. Like he's not somebody that you can count on a big game from Josh Okogie. Not much offensively. He can get there with stocks, and of course, as we just saw, he can put up a big game, but he can certainly fail at 3,500.
So it's funny because on a slate like this, typically you see somebody who's 3,500, having projected for north of 20 fantasy points. That would make somebody at least a decent looking value play. Not today, though, because there are so many guys who are around that price point that I still get projected for like, 5, 6, 7, 8 more fantasy points. And the big thing, too, if anybody's looking at the box score and saying, look at what he did yesterday, he went out and he scored 44 fantasy points. Once again, keep in mind, Devin Booker was out yesterday. This is going to be, a different looking scenario for the Phoenix Suns today because Devin Booker is going to be playing. He's going to take a lot of those minutes that Okogie was playing yesterday. Yeah. And I know that Okogie's starting, but even with that said, there's other players I prefer on the slate to him.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I don't think that I'm playing Okogie tonight in a 150 set. Yeah, probably I'd have some, but I don't think I'm playing him tonight.
Yeah, at least not as a priority. Other cheap guys that I'm going to be prioritizing over him. The next question. Oh, right. So RADM. My answer is Stanley Johnson is the player I like the least in that lineup. It seems like we're on the same page with that, right?
Yep.
But let's talk about that Spurs starting lineup that came in because the 5-man starting unit for the Spurs, once again, to reiterate, it was up in the air who exactly would be starting for the team. And we ended up getting, once again, to read off the starting 5, Blake Wesley, and then Branham, Keita Bates-Diop, Isaiah Roby, and then Zach Collins. So Collins is already somebody who's going to be pretty popular. Isaiah Roby is, I think, a little bit underowned, although I guess maybe now that he's starting, he's going to end up becoming more popular.
Power forward eligibility is huge.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Roby, I'm curious to see what his ownership ends up being, but he is somebody that I do like getting to in tournaments. And Isaiah Roby also is not a bad fantasy producer overall for the year. Isaiah Roby is playing, let's see. So for the year, we've got Isaiah Roby playing 11 minutes per game, averaging 10 fantasy points. Not the greatest points per fantasy producer in the world, but once again, if he's starting and he's going to play like mid to high 20s minutes, you're ending up with a guy who's still projecting for, a decent amount of fantasy points. And at least as of our last ownership projection, let me refresh and see where we had Isaiah Roby. It wasn't particularly high, I don't think.
Yeah, it's like 25% is our latest.
Oh, so we just got an ownership update. Isaiah Roby, 24% on DraftKings and FanDuel. FanDuel is actually projected for 30% ownership now. So, yeah, never mind. He's actually become really popular, as is Josh Okogie now that he's confirmed in the starting lineup. Okogie is projected for 16% ownership on DraftKings, but FanDuel projected for 33% ownership.
Yeah, I would not want to play Okogie on FanDuel. He can have a good game and still not be somebody you really want, just because we have so many great options here. His per 36 stats this year are certainly a lot better than they ever were for the Timberwolves, averaging 14.5 points this year. Over 8 rebounds per game total per 36 minutes, 3.3 assists. All of his numbers are significantly up from his Timberwolves days. So maybe I am underselling Okogie just a little bit, just because maybe he's not the player that he was last year. So maybe got to give him a little bit more credit. But still, if the field is going to play that much Josh Okogie, it's going to be with all this other value, it's going to be hard for me to want to play a ton of him.
Yeah. And then once again, just to go back to the point, we've got Devin Booker back for the team. The shot attempts that are going to come away from him. And I still assume he plays less minutes.
Yep. Seems like a safe assumption.
And by the way, going to read off some of our updated projections now for the San Antonio Spurs. I think we have it updated for the starting lineup. Yeah, so here's what we have right now for the Spurs right now in terms of what we have for fantasy projections for these guys. We have Zach Collins leading the way, projected for 33 fantasy points. Isaiah Roby at 28.5. Keita Bates-Diop, 26.5. Branham, 26. Stanley Johnson, about 25.5. And then Blake Wesley at 25. That is for DraftKings purposes. And then pulling it up for FanDuel, we have the Spurs guys at, once again, it's going to be about the same, but some differences. So still worth reading off. Zach Collins, 31.5 fantasy points. Roby, 28. Keita Bates-Diop, 26. Stanley Johnson, 25. Malachi Branham, 25. and then Blake Wesley at 24. So that's what we've got going over for the projections on the Spurs. If you guys want access to all of that, any package you sign up for, when you use the link that we have below, 50% off for any of our packages. So if you guys want access to all of our NBA tools, NBA player projections, ownership projections, our NBA lineup generator, you get all of that bundled together, 50% off the first package you sign up for when you use the link below. But also, if you just want lineups that are going to be built for you and super quick, our NBA lineup generator package is less than $10, and you could sign up for it with 50% off when you sign up the first time using the link we have below. So go check that out if you want access to our NBA tools for cheap. The next super chat we have here is from Robert Cremutula. He wants to know who are the 5 best cash options for FanDuel. So over on FanDuel, I would say, and let me look at our most recent ownership here. There's a lot of value. It's going to make it really easy to pay up for some of the stars on the slate. So with that in mind, I think it makes a whole lot of sense to roster for sure Giannis in cash games. And then even for fan, I would say like Giannis and Lillard as the 2 primary spend ups. Then as far as cheap guys go, I would say Talen Horton-Tucker, Zach Collins, and Isaiah Roby now that he's starting as well for cash options. I think all 5 of those for FanDuel make a whole lot of sense, Robert. So I would consider those guys. And anything you would add to that as somebody you consider like a must play for FanDuel cash?
So I haven't really looked at FanDuel. What is Mark Williams' price tag there?
Yeah, so Mark Williams over on FanDuel has a price tag of $4,800, and he's only center eligible.
Oh, yeah, so that's not... Yeah, no, I think that you've probably... I mean, yeah, I think Giannis is, with all the value, Giannis is just a slam dunk. The only concern being I think he's probable. I've heard people talking all day as though there's a real chance that he misses this game, but he's listed as probable. We already got the news that Middleton is out, so I imagine Giannis is going to play, so I'm not too concerned about it. Yeah, I think Giannis is a sure thing. I think you covered it pretty well.
Yeah, so that's where we're at there for FanDuel, Robert. And the next super chat is from Daniel Buffington. DK question: De'Aaron Fox or Paul George? Do you have a lean between those two, Neil?
Let me see. So we have Fox projected for just 4.5% ownership. Paul George at 4.6. Okay, so very similar from an ownership standpoint. George, of course, has the small forward eligibility, helps a little bit, but Fox projects just a little bit better. So I think, I mean, if you're talking like a util, I just go with the better projected play since they are so similar in ownership. I just go with De'Aaron Fox over Paul George. Yeah, I think I'd go with De'Aaron Fox. Of course, Paul George adds that positional eligibility, but if you're choosing between those two, I assume it's util. So I'd go De'Aaron Fox. How about you, Greg?
It's going to be De'Aaron Fox for me. And once again, this is one of the differences FanDuel, DraftKings. Before we were talking about Paul George, I do think he's a pretty good option on FanDuel at low ownership. DraftKings less so. So I would lean towards the Fox side there as far as DK is concerned. And then my filler arc has left us a question saying, can you recommend a small forward under 6K? Currently have Tim Hardaway Jr. and feel like that's a mistake. He says he already has Norman Powell in his lineup. So a small forward, he has $5,900 to spend.
Tobias Harris looks like he is our highest projected outside of Norman Powell.
Actually, wait, did he say, yeah, small forward. So it has to be a small forward.
Yeah. And he said he already has Norman Powell who projects the best. So outside of Norman Powell under 6K, it would be Tobias Harris, which honestly, you might want to consider reconstructing your lineup just because Tobias Harris just doesn't look like a great point per dollar play, but he'd be the best there.
Yeah, and I don't really like Tim Hardaway either. He said he currently has in, and he wants to switch it to somebody cheaper. The problem with Tim Hardaway is just where's the usage going to be, right? Because he's not playing alongside, Kyrie Irving. I know Luka was expected to play. I know he isn't going to be there, but still, Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's just going to have a hard time getting the usage going forward. But I do prefer Tim Hardaway Jr. to Tobias Harris. Like if those are your options, it has to be one of those two.
Yeah. I thought you were saying 1,500. So yeah, it would probably be.
I just realized he said under 6,000, okay. But he does have Tim Hardaway in that spot right now.
It's close between those two. I mean, they do have a matchup with the Kings, so that's kind of nice, but it's very close between those two.
Yeah, I'm not playing him, so I would say look elsewhere. But if you love the rest of your lineup and that's just your last spot, then Tim Hardaway Jr. is the guy that I would go to. Zach F. Any issues with Roby and Collins in the same lineup? No, because they're so cheap. I know there's a negative correlation there, but it's not an issue for me.
And they're starting alongside each other, so like they're not going every other in terms of minutes. They're not offsetting each other in terms of minutes. So if they're playing alongside each other, they can both play real minutes. So yeah, totally fine playing them both.
And we just got the Hornets starting lineup as expected. Mark Williams at center alongside Ball, Rozier, Hayward, and Washington. So that is the starting five for the Charlotte Hornets tonight. The next super chat we have is from Beer Dad B. Favorite play on DraftKings for 10,300 or less?
You know, my answer is always going to be Ant here, right? If it's not Ant, though.
Sabonis.
Yeah, Sabonis is 10,300. Yeah, he's only 4.7% owned. He projects just slightly better than Ant, but he's also less than half the ownership. So, yeah, I mean, thinking objectively, it'd probably have to be Sabonis there.
The next question we have is from, we answered the one from Zach F. We're at 14. Get off Derek White at 36%. Who around 6,300 on DK or lower? So does it have to be a guard or can it be a utility? Because if it's just 6,300 in general, who's my favorite player there? I mean, I prefer Brogdon to Derek White. I prefer Robert Williams to Derek White.
Yeah, I have some interest in Robert Williams.
Yeah, so those would be I prefer Brogdon, I prefer Robert Williams. So it depends. If this is a guard, utility spot, I'd say Time Lord, Robert Williams. If it's point guard or guard spot, then I would say Malcolm Brogdon. And that catches us up on the one more from Super Chat. Cyber Real Estate. Is So Rare the new Top Shot? No, they're very, very different. Sign up on So Rare 2 months ago. Was only 5K in the tournaments. Now it's over 50K. How do we attack this new market of So Rare? So So Rare is a fantasy game. The Top Shot wasn't a fantasy game. It was just, it's like collectible cards you could also play fantasy with.
It's more like DK Rainmakers, if you're familiar.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that we've free projections on the site, go check those out. That's going to be the easiest way to find out who the best plays are.
By the way, Greg, this latest competition, I got 29th out of 86,000 using the Stokastic projections for So Rare.
What did you get as your reward?
So I haven't pulled it yet because I think I'm probably doing So Rare content on Monday. So I will open it on a stream on Monday. God. But it is a rare tier 2.
That's a lot of anticipation for that there.
Right.
You know what else? There's a lot of anticipation for.
No, I don't.
Breaks of God, another sponsor for today's show. Nice. And if you guys haven't checked out Breaks of God yet, we had them as a sponsor in the past, and they are coming back around for the Super Bowl. So a giveaway that they're doing for the Super Bowl is they're going to be giving away some free autograph memorabilia. Travis Kelce, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith mini signed helmets. And if you guys want to be in the draw to go check this out, click the link in the description box below, and it'll tell you how to enter the giveaway. 3 winners are going to be selected during the live box break on Instagram on Super Bowl Sunday. Breaks of God is the latest sports card collecting trend to catch fire, and it's how sports card collectors of all ages are building high-value card collections without huge investments or risk. Make sure to keep up with all the latest box breaks and card trends by liking and following them on Instagram at Breaks of God. So if you guys want an opportunity to just get free memorabilia that's relevant to the Super Bowl from Breaks of God, go check out the comment that we have below in the comment section. Go check out Breaks of God over on Instagram. It's free stuff. Like, give yourself a chance to win something free. Travis Kelce, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, signed helmets from all of them are going to be given away for free this weekend. How are you doing with your lineups, by the way?
I'm doing well. I've got I think I've got a set in. I'll upload some more just in case I'm wrong about that. But yeah, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I am. Sometimes these shows go so quick, and
They really
the lineups built out. I've got to upload them. That's always the key. Building the lineups is one thing. They have to remember to upload them to DraftKings too, because they don't take your word for it. If you message them and say, hey, I won 100K tonight, they don't take your word for it. You have to actually play the lineup in the contest. So Making sure I have that uploaded right now.
Where's
we just
the
got a
trust
super chat
DraftKings?
from Pierre, but there is no question. It's just a blank super chat. So Pierre, if you have a question, throw that into YouTube chat so that I can answer it. You don't have to leave another super chat. Just throw the question into YouTube, and I'm on the lookout for it right now. I'm clicking upload on my lineups. Cool. Pierre. Here we go. After the numbers Trey put up against the Suns, thoughts on Halliburton on FanDuel? He seems like he's going under the radar. So Halliburton, by the way, I actually do have bets on Halliburton for tonight. And also in my FanDuel build, I got about double the field on him. He's projected for less than 10% ownership. There's a couple things to like about him. First of all, like you said, he's low owned. His price is down. 8,800 is much cheaper than we've typically seen from Halliburton. The Suns are playing on the tail end of a back-to-back. And the Suns defense is probably going to be shittier in the short term. Mikal Bridges was their best perimeter defender. They're missing him right now. So I think Halliburton's a really strong contrarian play, especially on FanDuel, Pierre. I like it. We've got all these other super chats. So now really quick, we got a bunch of questions in Discord. Wants to know, first, Tall Tale. Who is a good single entry play for DK? Okay, so 4,600 or less for DK power forward only. Who is our
forward?
Power forward at 4,600 or less. My top projected guys are so much shit. Like the answer for me is Isaiah Roby.
I know. Yeah, it's for the Stokastic tools as well. He is the highest projected player, 4,600 or less. So I mean, it's got to be. You just go with the projection there. He is going to be highly owned. Kata Bates Jop, but like he's 4,300. He's 1,300 more expensive, and he is a couple fantasy points lower projected. So just not a very strong option. I even forget, is he starting Bates Jop?
Yes. So I would say if you already have Roby in your lineup, then the answer is Bates Jop. That's how I would look at it. I don't care that they're on the same team either. They're both cheap enough where they could both look good. Yeah. JEW, favorite guard under $9,400. That for me is.
I mean, if Halliburton counts, he is the highest projected.
Yeah.
If you're saying under 9,400, then
one thing I've noticed about questions in general, a lot of times people will say under 9,400 when it actually can be 9,400.
Yeah.
So if you have the 9,400 to spend, it is Halliburton. But if you don't, then I would go to De'Aaron Fox at 9,000. The next question that we have in Discord is from Lippy. Can you tell me about SGA and why he's 4% owned? Because he's really expensive, and you could also play Giannis and Tatum. Like if you played a lineup with SGA, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I prefer Giannis and Tatum as spend-up options, and they aren't that much more expensive than SGA relative to a slate where there's unlimited value. Are you prioritizing SGA in any way?
No, I don't think. What am I playing? I got 0 SGA. I'm playing. I've always got to play some Ant. I've got some Ja. I've got some Lillard. I actually prioritize Lillard a little bit. I'm playing above the field of Lillard. I'm not getting to any SGA. I think he's totally a fine play. I'm not getting there.
Just bang out as many of these questions. Oh, we got a super chat from Corey Bomber. Too late, but Branham and PG-13 or Derek White and Jaren Jackson Jr. That would be Branham and PG-13 for me.
Wait, what was the other one?
Derek White and Jaren Jackson Jr. But
I do kind of like. I always like Jaren Jackson Jr. He's just a player that he's always going to be in my player pool when he is low owned. But yeah, I still think you've got the right one.
Yeah, Branham and PG-13. I did end up getting to a little bit of Paul George on DraftKings, which I didn't think I was going to. But I guess just what ends up happening when there's so much value on the slate that $8,900 made him a little bit more tenable for me. But still, I think he's just getting back to what I said before. Still a better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. Some other questions that we have in Discord right now. Gangrene, not a question, more of a comment. But he's saying Kyrie tonight.
Yeah,
so Kyrie night.
Yeah, who was somebody else just said, oh yeah, Ted Nugent just asked, are you rolling with any Kyrie? So I don't have any Kyrie right now. He's really coming in at under 1% ownership. Honestly, that intrigues me. He played 37 minutes in his first game with Dallas. Now he's got a matchup with the Kings. It's a great matchup. Man, 1% owned. I kind of think that I'm going to try and get just a little bit of Kyrie. I mean, you get him in I'm playing 20 lineups. I play in one lineup. I'm well above the field. So I actually think that Kyrie is a pretty interesting large field GPP option only.
Yeah, and it's funny because Lippy/Eric Johnson said that he thinks that playing only he thinks not playing SGA is a mistake. The problem is, like, depending on how many lineups you're playing, it feels like a mistake to not play a lot of these guys, but you just can't play everybody. There are so many good options today, especially on the high end. So, if you said that, like, all right, you're building one lineup, if you feel like not having SGA is a mistake, but I mean, is it a mistake to not have Lillard or not have Tatum or to not have Giannis or to not have John Morant? Like, so many of these guys are good plays and you can only play so many of them. It's hard. Like, at the end of the day, I feel like we're going to say, like, oh, I can't believe I didn't play, LaMelo Ball and he scored 60 fantasy points today. Or I can't believe I didn't play, Kyrie Irving and he scored 60 without Luka out there. But it's just hard on a slate like this where there's so much value and so many spend up options. You just can't really get to all of them.
Yeah, no, that is true. Just objectively at under 1% Kyrie with no Luka against Sacramento, I think is objectively a good play. But I'm with you. Like, it's so hard to play all of the good plays on this slate. There's just so many.
And by the way, we are now at lock. If you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. The next 30 minutes, Neil and I are still going to be sticking around. We're going to be reacting to any news we have. We're also going to be talking about some of the NHA props against the house in terms of what we are waiting for on the injury report. Rudy Gobert is questionable and Kyle Anderson is questionable. The injury report for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Neil's Minnesota Timberwolves, it's been very difficult to parse as of late, but I'm going to have you guess here. Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson are both questionable. Neither of them played last game. Are they going to play today? It's just a guess. Nobody's going to hold.
Yeah. No, I think that they'll play against Memphis. Yeah, I would be inclined to think they're both in tonight, especially with no D'Lo. Get his ass out of here. Now Rudy is going to come in with fire. Yeah, they're playing.
I tend to think that as well. And by the way, Mike Conley is in. Mike Conley is going to be making his debut. How did you feel about that trade, being a Minnesota Timberwolves fan? D'Lo gone and Mike Conley coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not especially exciting. Like, Mike Conley, like, he's getting up there in age. He's not like really contributing that much on the floor anymore. I do think that I think overall, I think it's a positive development, especially hearing the rumors about D'Lo. Now that he's gone, talking about how he has been just talking so much shit about Rudy openly. Like, you can't have that kind of guy on your team. So I think that it's a good cultural upgrade, Mike Conley. And I also think, Cat, probably one of the bigger whiners in the NBA. I think Mike Conley he has 0 technical fouls in his NBA career. I think that he could be a good influence on Cat, hopefully.
So here's what I think is happening here. And this is not exactly like some crazy contrarian opinion. I think they're so invested in Rudy Gobert at this point. They thought the best possible way to get the most out of Rudy Gobert is just to give him the point guard that he's most familiar with over the course of his career. And I just think that right now they are so, especially the front office. Think of it this way. If you are, and I forget the general manager of the Minnesota Timberwolves, of the Timberwolves. If you're in his position, if the Rudy Gobert trade fails, you are never going to work in the NBA again.
Yeah.
You have
Tim
to
Connolly. I was like, okay, yeah.
You have to do so from his standpoint, just from a personal standpoint, he's trying to do whatever he can to make the Rudy Gobert trade salvageable. And I could see why he would say, let's get Mike Conley in here, who's very familiar with Rudy Gobert. They've played really well together in the past. And I could see where you can make a case for that is the best possible way to salvage Rudy Gobert. That's what I think the main reason the trade was made.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I mean, I think that it makes sense in a lot of ways. But yeah, certainly it could be just like get Rudy with somebody he's familiar with, make this trade look good. Yeah, I think that it's a fine. Did you see the Jazz starting lineup just came out?
Let's see the Jazz starting lineup. That is going to be important. And that, by the way, that's while we don't have that many guys who are on the injury report today and are questionable heading into lock, like I said, just the Minnesota Timberwolves, we are going to be getting some starting lineups, and we could be getting some weird starting lineups. Like we could be getting some lineups just unexpected because we haven't seen these scenarios before. The Jazz being one of them. The starting lineup for Utah: Colin Sexton at point guard, Agbaji at shooting guard. Then we got Markkanen, Olynyk, and Walker Kessler. I wasn't really sure what to expect here. I wasn't expecting Agbaji to be in the starting lineup though. So with that being the case, what do we make of this starting unit?
Yeah. So I mean, does that downgrade THT for us?
I think a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah, so I am going to wait and see. Uh, can you hear me?
He's not frozen for me. Am I frozen?
All right, should I leave and come right back?
But this is so weird because Neil's like, I could see Neil just fine. Yeah, Neil is frozen on the screen, but not in real life.
Can they hear me? My computer does appear to be frozen for what it's worth. So I don't know what's going on. They can hear me.
Yeah, just have Neil leave and come back.
All right.
This is fun. So while Neil's figuring that out, I'm gonna pull up No House Advantage. I'm gonna be going through some of the best plays we have against the house over at NHA. So if you guys haven't signed up, the deal over at No House Advantage, you sign up using our link, and you're going to get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit. But there's even more because we talked about all the overlay that happens on NHA. Earlier, we were talking about the contest. It was only a quarter of the way full. So you want to be taking advantage of a lot of that kind of overlay that we have over at NHA, but also some of the props against the house. And the easiest way to find value on those is just using NBA Bet Pro. This is a tool that has projections for pretty much every single prop, for all of the players, all of their stats. And we've got every single sports book in here. So whether it be DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, but then also sites like No House Advantage, sites like Prize Picks, we have prop projections for these all in NBA Bet Pro. So you can get 1 week free trial for NBA Bet Pro using the link below. And I'm just refreshing this right now to find what we currently have projected as some of the best props to play over on NHA. So we have right now as the 3 props that have 60+% chance of winning over at NHA. And you can play these all together. Parlay them over on No House Advantage. Paul George under 5.5 assists. Not unreasonable. I know that Kawhi Leonard is out, but once again, Paul George, slight minutes cap. The expectation is not for him to go out and play 40 minutes. So we have Paul George projected for 5 assists today. His line is 5.5 over at NHA. Massive point projection for him. We have Norman Powell projected for 23.2 points. His over-under for points over at NHA is 20.5, so we like the over on that number. And then Drew Eubanks, his over-under for points is 8.5. We have him projected for 7.8, so that's an under we like. So those are our 3 best props against house play over at NHA. Paul George, under 5.5 assists. Norman Powell, over 20.5 points. And Drew Eubanks, under 8.5 points. Is Neil back or is he still frozen?
You tell me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I could hear you. I could see you, and it appears you're moving. Mike, how about for you? Yeah, as somebody threw in chat, in the words of Israel Adesanya, said that you were frozen like Elsa. Which, by the way, the worst trash talk I think I've ever heard before. It was
is that even trash talk? I don't feel insulted by it.
No, it was. I think he said it about Alex Pereira before their last fight. He said that he was going to freeze him like Elsa. And I was like, but Elsa, not that I'm like super familiar with the Disney movies, but she wasn't frozen in the movie. The name of the movie was Frozen. It doesn't mean she was frozen. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, she was, as I recall, was never frozen. I did see the movie. I did see Frozen 2 as well. And I don't believe she was ever frozen.
Yeah. So it's terrible trash talk. But anyway, it's here. Neil's back. He is unfrozen. And that's all good. And we still
Where did the tattoo on my neck go?
Yeah. Probably the funniest thing you've ever said on the show, Neil.
You think so? All right, good.
That was very strong.
I mean, low standards.
No, but I mean, that was because, especially me, because I love finding idiots on Twitter.
I know
there was so much of that last night. Just the things people were saying last night about DeMar Hamlin giving a speech at the NFL award ceremony, and people trying to find out, do the tattoos look different? Is he a clone? And listen, no offense to DeMar Hamlin, but if we had the ability to clone anybody, are we really doing a backup safety for the Bills? Like, we could do anybody, and we're doing a backup safety for the Bills. We've got right. We've got Einstein. We've got Ted Williams. His body's been frozen for a long time. We got a lot of options. I think we go to before DeMar Hamlin.
Yeah, I don't think he's probably number 1 on that list.
If you could clone any one person, a dead person, you're bringing back a dead person. Who are you choosing?
Oh man, a dead person. Bring him. That's a really tough question for me. It's not anybody I know. Like, I don't have any my grandparents all dead, but like I wasn't that close to my grandparents. It would definitely be like a historical figure.
Maybe if you say a parent, it's like a cop out answer. I want somebody who's going to impact the can impact the world in some way. Not some guys like, I would like to eat one more dinner because like that's lame. I understand why people would go that way, but
Yeah.
I mean more like broad sense, like a celebrity type person.
I mean, it might be like Einstein, like with the additional knowledge that we have today, Einstein might be a very useful person to have around. I'd be in like I'm not I'll say I'm not a religious person, Greg, but I would be interested, like bring back Jesus just from like a historical interest standpoint, like what happened here. I just wanted to kind of know what was going on. Would be kind of interesting. Yeah,
so
I don't know.
For me,
yeah, let's hear it.
Because somebody who not only was impactful on me, but my favorite comedian was Patrice O'Neal, and I would like to see Patrice come back. I want to see Patrice return. Now, hopefully, he doesn't just eat himself into death again. That's one of the risks too here. But Patrice, I thought was on his way to becoming one of the best stand-ups of all time, and really went away just while he was about to hit his peak. So that would be
I'm not familiar. Patrice O'Neal.
Yeah.
Spell restaurant.
Yeah. Go.
I know this guy.
Yeah,
I didn't know that he died.
Patrice O'Neal, for my money, favorite comedy special of all time for me was Elephant in the Room. I loved Elephant in the Room.
Sad.
Boner. That's whose grave is that? Boner. That's is
that just some guy with the last name Boner?
Is it just in memoriam for something Eric can't have anymore? It's just death, and that's what's been set up. Somebody the other day called Eric the new face of erectile dysfunction when he's like, which I didn't understand because sort of the existing face. It was a very mean thing to say about Eric.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Do we have any more questions in our Discord channel to answer? And 8604 wants to know, is Agbaji worth anything? So let's hit back on this, Neil. We got this starting lineup that was somewhat unexpected for the Utah Jazz. And who do we want to prioritize here? How does this change the outlook of Utah with Agbaji starting and Taylor Horton Tucker coming off the bench?
Yeah, so let me see. What do we have Agbaji's minutes at? Hang on 1 second.
Also, while you're on, I'm very disappointed that the Jazz, one of my favorite teams to bet coming into the season. They've been great against the spread this year. I had them at 14-1 to be in the play-in game. And now they're just kind of punting the rest of the season. I'm still very, very broken up about that. They were the first team this year to hit the over on their win total. So that one cashed pretty easily. But I would have liked the 14-1 to be in the play-in game, which seems just about dead now. But as far as our projections go with the Utah Jazz,
is Agbaji in the player pool? Because I'm not finding him.
Yeah, he's flat. He's the flat min 3K.
Okay.
Let me ask Lee if he has it updated for the starting lineup. So yeah, Agbaji is starting. He is 3K with shooting guard and small forward eligibility on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Agbaji. Also, his name is kind of hard to spell, which could also kind of trip people up. So he is on FanDuel. I assume he's min price on FanDuel as well. Yeah, FanDuel, he has just shooting guard eligibility, but he's not min price. He's $3,700 over on FanDuel. That is Agbaji. And the way you spell his name, by the way, for anybody to look for him, Agbaji. So for tonight, I am not going to be rostering him. I do think he's in line to play more minutes now, but he's not been a very good fantasy producer this year. Actually, he's been a very shitty. That's
0.55.
Yeah. He is playing 13.7 minutes per game this year and averaging 7.54 fantasy points. So I will not be playing him for DFS, but he does take away from I thought we were going to see THT start. So that's going to be a little bit of a downgrade.
Yep. Yeah, we've got THT now for 23 minutes. We still have him for 25 fantasy points at 3,400. So still looks like an okay play. But if THT is going to be 41% owned, I think I'd rather fall on the under there. I'm going to have to redo that.
Yeah, it's just minutes to allocate elsewhere. And if I had to play one of the two, I would play THT over Agbaji.
Yeah.
But with that said, THT, Taylor Horton Tucker, is coming off the bench. I just have to have a slightly lower expectation for him, which, by the way, in our projections right now, we have Taylor Horton Tucker projected to play 23 minutes now.
Yep. and he's a much better fantasy point per minute guy. I'm still getting some THT, which I don't know. It's the kind of thing where I might think like there are some slates where I would think about getting rid of him completely just because he is going to be over-owned because everybody thought he was going to be starting. So there's a part of me that's like, maybe I should get rid of my THT now that he's on the bench just because I know he's going to be over-owned because people thought he was going to start. But currently I'm just coming in under what we haven't projected for in terms of ownership. Yeah, I still think that he's still kind of he's a useful fantasy asset potentially.
Yeah, Lee just messaged that it's being updated right now. He said that Agbaji is expecting around 20 minutes, which I think is a totally reasonable expectation. But once again, the fallout of that is going to mean that those are minutes that are probably going to have to come away from Talen Horton-Tucker. In the Utah game, last time out, we saw THT play 25 minutes. So, I still think that there's reason to think that we get mid-20s minutes out of Talen Horton-Tucker. But I do think he's going to be overthrown now, just because this news come out. THT was expected to be one of the most popular players on the slate. Clarkson was ruled out, an hour and a half ago now. And then we get this starting lineup with Agbaji starting 18 minutes before that game locks. So I'm just apt to get to other guys. I'm not going to play Agbaji. I still love getting to Colin Sexton. Sexton is by far the best player from the Utah Jazz. Nothing has changed in that respect. But I'm going to lower my exposure to Talen Horton-Tucker, and I hope this does not kick my ass, which it might. The other day we had a scenario that I would consider to be fairly similar. Edmund Sumner came off the bench for the Nets.
Yeah,
he was still super popular. Sumner. Actually, one of the only reasons I did well on that slate was Sumner was like 55% owned in the $100 single entry on DraftKings. Just by not playing Sumner, I finished like 18th in that tournament, and it made the slate for me. I did really well in single entry that night, and I kind of view Talen Horton-Tucker as, I think there's a higher minutes floor for him than what there was for Sumner the other day, but I expect him to be over-owned in a kind of similar way.
Yeah, no, I think that you're right. So I actually stayed on some of my Sumner just because I was thinking they still have limited bodies, and he's coming off the bench. Everybody's going to pivot off him. But I should have thought, people aren't going to get off him. Like, people don't late swap as much as they should. Like, so that was, I think, kind of a mistake. I felt a little bit better looking through some pros and seeing like a lot of pros kind of had the same stand where they're like, yeah, I'm still going to play some Edmund Sumner. He's still a fine point per dollar guy. But I think probably the better move would have been to just get completely off of your Sumner just because he was going to be over-owned. And I think this is a similar situation. I'm still playing a little bit of Talen Horton-Tucker, but I'm playing about half of where we have the field projected right now.
Yeah, so I had, and what is, do you have it in front of you? What is the most recent ownership projection on him?
Yeah, actually, I still have the field at like 45%, but let me.
Okay. Yeah, so I had Talen Horton-Tucker in about half my lineups, and I just reran and I got him in 15%.
Yeah, and I'm at 22%. Okay, so we are down to the field at 25%. Talen Horton-Tucker, that seems a lot more reasonable.
And looks like the trade might not be going through here. Not a significant one. It was the Gary Payton and James Wiseman trade, now apparently in jeopardy.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
That could help Detroit. Detroit was going to be starting James Wiseman ahead of Jalen Duren, which I was not a fan of.
Right.
But,
yeah.
So something else too that is going to change as a result of this is, who did I get more of? I guess it just kind of spread out. I was trying to figure out if there was one value play that really popped up towards the top of me when I was getting to less of Talen Horton-Tucker, but it looks like it just kind of spread out. Like, I got to a little bit more Norman Powell. Malcolm Brogdon looked like he popped up in an extra lineup for me. But there wasn't like one guy that all of a sudden I get predominantly more of by lowering THT. Was it for you anybody who popped up significantly in his place?
I mean, I got a ton of, but this is before I got a ton of Isaiah Roby. I really jammed in Mark Williams. I have a lot there. I think probably my Colin Sexton went up a little bit. I'm at 68% Colin Sexton right now, getting a lot of Killian Hayes. Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm not sure which of these guys I got more of, because I think I was getting a lot of all of these value plays already. Zach Collins, Killian Hayes, Colin Sexton, Roby, Williams.
And let's look at some
Celtics.
Celtics lineup. I mean, the Celtics lineup is nothing crazy here. Just Derek White, Sam Hauser, Jason Tatum, Grant Williams, Robert Williams. I know Hauser was ridiculous the other day. He is not somebody I have interest in, though.
Yeah, especially after he's probably going to be over-owned because of the night he had the other week. Well, he really did everything in the first half and then did nothing in the second half. Got in foul trouble.
Some early results from the basketball games. Spurs values, some of them showing out early. We've got Zach Collins has 3 rebounds and an assist. Branham has 7 points. We got Blake Wesley off to 3 points and a rebound start. Keta Bates-Diop, 2 points, 2 rebounds, and an assist. From the Detroit side of the game, boy, is this team just pathetic. Halfway through the first quarter, and they've mustered 5 points against the Spurs.
Yeah, that's not great. You know who else is not off to a great start? 6 minutes in, Josh Okogie has 3.5 fantasy points.
Nice.
So I feel good about that. I have him one of my 22 lineups, looks like, but I think I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I didn't play any of Okogie. Let me double check that. Yeah, I have 0% of him. We talked about the Jazz lineup. We're good there, Mike. Thank you, though.
Even with White starting, you guys like Brogdon, the juice box asked. Yeah, I think I still have some interest in Brogdon. He's
by the way, Brogdon always comes off the bench for the Celtics, and it's not something I'm really too concerned about. I know that Sam Hauser turned into an 80% 3-point shooter the other day. He got the NBA Jam fire in the first half and just made everything after that. But I don't view that as replicable, and I do expect Brogdon to be somebody who ends up playing more minutes than Sam Hauser, and being more effective than Sam Hauser as well. So Hauser to me is not somebody I'm rostering, but yes, I do prefer Brogdon slightly to Derek White for today. It's also a good matchup against the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah. Yep.
Some super chats. This one is from a few of them came in here. This is from James Teal. Stay on Taylor Horton Tucker, pivot to Little. Of those two, I prefer THT.
Yeah. Where do we even have Nasir Little projected? Yeah, we've got Nasir Little projected for 27 minutes, 21 fantasy points. Yeah, THT is the better projection there. Nasir Little is a little bit interesting at 5.8% ownership at the min price against OKC. But yeah, it's still going to be THT. Just if you're making a one lineup decision, I'd rather play THT generally.
And we've got Anthony Davis has left us super chat. His vote for who to bring back. He wants Aaliyah to be cloned. All right, so he's got Aaliyah, who she got a while ago.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago. So that's Anthony Davis's vote. He wants who he claims his wife Aaliyah. Did Aaliyah know that you two were married? I have a feeling this might have been a one-way relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does hanging somebody's poster up above your bed is that a marriage contract?
I think that's binding. Yeah.
All right.
If it's above your bed.
Fair enough. All right. So bring her back so we could get Anthony Davis's marriage back going. James Steele, once again, I prefer THT to Nasir Little. Robert Cremutula, would you play THT in FanDuel cash? Considering it's so popular, I think you could still play him in cash games. Different scenarios cash compared to GPP. I would still be willing to play him in a cash game. Enzo Boza, I lost a lot of money yesterday when I switched to Walker on the Lakers for Christie. It would have been a big night. The first choice is usually right. Not always. You should still adjust information.
Yeah. Yeah, you should definitely, long term, if you're making these late swaps and you're doing that in a smart way where you're getting onto the lower owned, higher projected guys, that is going to be a positive. I also switched on to a lot of Max Christie and regretted it last night, but I still think that long term, if you make those kinds of decisions, you're going to make more money.
And the other thing too is starting doesn't always mean better, right? It's different. It's different scenarios for different players. Sometimes if somebody is going to start and play, if somebody's going to play 26 minutes, you'd rather have it be off the bench than starting, depending on the different scenarios, because bench, you're just going to be playing with lesser players. It's more usage available. It's hard though, because not every situation is a one size fits all. But yeah, in general, Enzo, I think you want to react to information. Yeah. Over at 14, who is your low owned guy for the night? DK, name a couple. Who is the lowest owned player that you like the most for today, Neil?
I'd say chat kind of talked me into him Kyrie Irving, 1.3% ownership now. I do have like it's a matchup with the Kings. No Luka. He's clearly too expensive for being Kyrie Irving. Like he's priced up at 10,500, but if he's coming in at 1.3% ownership, like I think that Kyrie could put up 65, 70 fantasy points. And I mean, he would need to pay off this salary on this slate, like to compete with guys like Giannis to be worthwhile. But I really think that he does have that upside. So it's probably Kyrie as far as like I'm playing 9% right now. He's in 1.3% of lineups. Yeah, chat talk me into it.
We got another question here. Mod T also asking about Nasir Little. I'm not playing Nasir Little tonight.
Yeah, I don't have any Nasir Little.
Yeah, I don't have exposure to him. I don't have him projected terribly. I have him for a little over 20 fantasy points. There's so many there. I don't know I've ever seen a slate where there's so many guys who are like 3K on DraftKings that have projected right around 20 fantasy points.
Yeah. This is crazy. I just clicked on my Twitter tab and I see DK DFS responding, Roby 2 quick ones CP. So that's great. I have a lot of Isaiah Roby, so not excited about 2 quick fouls on Roby.
Yeah, Isaiah Roby, although he did get off to a decent enough start for min price anyway. So,
yeah.
I mean, 3 points and 3 rebounds for him in 7 minutes before he got into foul trouble. So, decent start for him. But we got the hockey line change for the San Antonio Spurs. They went all 5 starters out at once, and now they've got the bench. And listen to this 5-man unit. Graham, Barlow, Stanley Johnson, McDermott, and Jang is the 5-man unit right now.
Gorgie Jang got in the game?
Yeah, Gorgie Jang.
You know that he's my guy, right? Like Gorgie Jang, I was like, he's like my favorite player for years. Yeah.
That's
a fun. It is random. So I started watching basketball in 2013 and he was a rookie in 2013. I just like right away had like a 2020 game. Like in 2000, I was like, this guy is legit. He's going to be, I also was a basketball card collector and I would often like take the Timberwolves in group breaks, like Breaks of God, for example, doing group breaks. I'd take the Timberwolves. So I had a lot of Gorgie Jang rookie cards and just thought he was going to be so good. And then he was like from a like looking at advanced stats, like looking at ESPN real plus minus, he was like top 50 in the NBA for a year as a starter. Like everybody was like, this guy sucks. And I was like, just look at all of the like these other sites. And now I'm like, yeah, I don't know. There's probably a middle ground there. Like he was probably better than they gave him credit for, probably worse than I gave him credit for. But he had some good years for the Timberwolves.
The one more super chat here. This is from Robert Cremutula. THT and Ja or Laurie and Simons? I prefer Laurie Markin and Anthony Simons now.
Yeah, Laurie Markin is kind of interesting. I don't even know if I have any. How much Laurie do I have?
I have 15%.
I mean, he's leading the charge, right? He's like they traded all their starters, all their great scorers.
Clarkson out today.
Clarkson out, yeah. Actually, Laurie is somebody that I'm gonna run another crunch now because I have 0 Laurie, and he's somebody that I had been thinking. I was like, man, with Clarkson out, no Vanderbilt, no Malik Beasley anymore. Like Laurie Markin might be carrying the load here.
So by the way, the quickest, I'm going to go over some other stats. Huge first quarter. Jalen Brunson is 16 real life NBA points in the first quarter against the Philadelphia 76ers. Big start for him. But then also I want to shout out the best answer that we got in the Discord channel of who anybody would clone or bring back. The answer to that goes to John D'Amato, who says if he could bring back anything, it would be my Afro. That's what he would want to bring back. So that's his answer. And that is what we're going to close the show with. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Once again, if you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, have a great weekend, and enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that feeling it was so mad risky to let him down.